Are they going to join us? Okay. Is that all right, Mr. Elliott? You don't need... No, okay. Right, well, I think by now everyone knows the form. I don't need to do my usual introduction, as I'm sure we're all familiar with the normal housekeeping points. So the main thing that will happen today is the cross-examination of the council's witness, and we'll also hear the community council's witnesses. If we finish in time, we will also start the design hearing session, and that would show that we are keeping very good time in terms of our programme. I would just remind Mr. Dean, so if you could remember to speak into the microphone. Apart from the audience, the light on the microphone determines who the camera picks out. And according to Mr. Murray, the best thing in dealing with the cut and thrust of cross-examination is if both of you just keep your microphones on, and that simplifies things. Before we actually commence, are there any procedural points that we need to discuss? Mr. Finlay?
No, sir. There was one matter left over from yesterday, which was potential. I think the parties were going to check the accuracy of APP-16, which was the document that was produced yesterday afternoon. And as far as I'm aware, so far there's been no suggestion to us of any inaccuracy in it. But that may still be a moving feast at the moment.
Mr. Elliott?
After leaving last night, I've not had really any chance to have discussion with Mr. Deans. I don't know if he's been able to make progress, but we may have to reserve that a little bit.
I will make a note in my black book. Anything else? Any other procedural points? Okay. Mr. Finlay, do you want to start your cross-examination, please?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Deans.
Morning, Mr. Finlay.
I want to first of all ask about your general experience within Perth. Have you been involved with the local plan material and the justification for the CTLR?
I've had quite extensive involvement in the CTLR and the local plan, yes.
I'm grateful. And presumably, for the local plan that's in progress at the moment, the transport justification for that was based upon the Sistra Paramix model, data produced from that.
Yes, that's correct.
And likewise, the justification for the CTLR.
Yes.
And presumably, there's no suggestion from the council to the LDP reporters or indeed anyone else that the Sistra Paramix model is anything other than robust.
Yes, robust, fit for purpose, yes. Ultimately, I would have signed off, yes.
I'm not surprised you say that, but I just thought we'd get that out to begin with. Could I then take you to a more detailed question, because you were involved in the scoping of the TA in this case, the traffic assessment, transport assessment, and if you turn to APP9, there are a series of emails, and I understand that it was you and a Mr. Marich. Without seeking to be invidious, where do you and he relate in the scale of seniority within the Transport Planning Department of PKC?
Yes, he's no longer with us. He did work for me. He did have an early involvement in this scheme, and certainly some of the early scoping discussions. I think it's fair to say there was a bit of tension involved in some of these early discussions, so I became involved at that time. That was still fairly early doors. 2017, I recollect, the base model parametrics had just been effectively delivered to us. I know it was a 2015 base model, but it takes a couple of years to actually build a model in terms of the network and the calibration, etc. So I had suggested at the time to ARUPS that we've got the base model, it's fit for purpose. Hopefully you wouldn't intend to use it. But I think in terms of the issues that we've got at the moment at Bridgend, we thought, certainly I thought it would be better waiting until we had a 2019 model, which was actually going to be developed.
You're slightly running ahead of yourself, Mr.
Okay,
Deans, because
sorry,
all I asked you was where you and Mr. Marich related to each other, and I think you gave us the answer because you said he worked for you.
He does, yes, he did.
And just very helpfully, though, you did go on and talk about the production of the ceramics model, and I'm just looking at an email here, but you don't need to go to it yourself, but what someone from Sistra was saying was, because of the size of Perth, we haven't inspected all the junctions. We only survey the main junctions, but that definitely would have included Bridgend junction.
Yes, absolutely.
So that whilst you wouldn't have necessarily expected Sistra to have looked at, as I say, every junction, they will have looked at Bridgend junction to confirm, or to, as well as trying to model it, they will have sought to see how the traffic actually works to ensure the model is as accurate as possible.
Yes.
Thank you. Then if we go to APP 9.2, which is a clutch of emails, and, but the top one is dated 4th of April 2017, or it certainly is in my bundle.
I'm not sure he will have that one, because I think I took that out of our paper and put it in mine. So
I think
is
4th of April 2017.
The same one that was referred to yesterday.
I think it may well have been.
Yes.
It may be you can do this from memory, Mr. Deans, and if I'm being unfair to you, then all that I'll ask you to accept in respect to that was, on that day, it's a letter from ARUPS to Tony Marich, presenting a summary of a preliminary scoping discussion. So it's for the transport assessment. So it was sent to him on the 4th of April. So, and it included the TRICS databases upon which were being relied.
Yes.
So I'm grateful. We don't actually then need to turn to that document. Then I do want to go to the next document, which is an email from Tony Marich. Well, there's a number of emails. It's an email chain, but it's APP 9.3, and it's the top document is a email of the 31st of May of 2017 at 15:42. I don't know whether Craig, you have a copy, so that probably that one. Yeah. I can get Mr. Welton to pass you a copy. And could you do the next 9.5?
What was the email again?
It's 31st. Mr. Welton's got.
I think we've got it.
31st of May 2017.
1542.
1542.
Good.
Great. That's all right. We've got them. Well, we'll see. If you go to the second page of that, because like all email chains, it operates in reverse, you will. Towards the bottom of the page, you'll see an email from Tony Marich on the 19th of April at 18:36. And that's his response to the scoping response. And there are a number of bullet points there. And the first bullet point is one I think Mr. Diamond has created in his evidence, and in the light of your earlier answers, I don't think we need to go through that. But that is, we can note what he's saying there, that the modelling, Mr. Marich is reiterating that modelling must be based on testing your proposal on the Paramix model. I want to go, though, to the bullet point at the bottom of the page, where he says, which I think is the 8th bullet point, I can confirm that no committed development that would need to be applied to the model. And you'll have heard Mr. Diamond yesterday saying that he understood that appropriate committed development would be fed into the model. Is that correct? And I'll just to add to your, I think that's also the position for your sister run in 2019, the council's request. The committed development is within the model.
Yes, it is, yes.
Great. That's all I was asking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then if we go over the page to the first bullet point on the next page, that would be page 3. Simply asking you to note that at this stage. There's debate about whether the hospital figures should be taken into account and whether it should be net or gross. And at that stage, Mr. Marich is saying they should be left out of account, so it should be the gross development figure. That develops. We'll come on and see that in a moment. But it's the bullet point below that. With regard to the tricks analysis, I'm prepared to accept those figures. And as I understand that the tricks analysis that ARIPS have presented was not only the one that's been taken forward, but was also the tricks analysis that was used in the Council's 2019 sister run.
Yes, probably, yes.
Thank you. That's very helpful. If we then go back, so that's Mr. Marich's response to the 4th of April document. We then go back to page 1 of that document, and one can see on the second email on that day from a Mr. Niall Moran, who presumably also works for you.
Yes.
Or did at the time. That if one goes to the third line, he's talking about the new model includes updated survey data from July 2015. The turning counts can be made available if that would be useful, and I think they were. And will provide a robust assessment of the proposals, in particular the Lochie Bray Bridge End Junction, which is of particular sensitivity. So that's the identification by the Council of that junction as being of particular sensitivity, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And then if one goes to the email at the top of the page, I've now confirmed with Alex, who's presumably yourself, that he's satisfied that with your proposals in terms of deducting the trips that would be associated with the current consented historic use of the site. And we know that that position has since developed, but that was the position at the time.
At the time, yes.
That's fine. And just because the site does have an historic use, and theoretically, at least it could be reopened as a hospital without needing planning permission. Whether that is anything more than a theoretical position is another matter, but transport planning can sometimes turn to the theoretical, as the Community Council have pointed out. So we can, thank you very much, that's all very helpful. If we can leave that to one side and then go on to 2 documents on in the bundle, so there's then a scoping response, which I don't think we need to turn to, but there's then a document C, which would be APP 9.5, which is the top document is an email from yourself dated 15th of June 2017.
Yes, I've got that.
Great. So again, working backwards in that document, just to see what we're speaking about. If you turn to page 3 of that document, you'll see that it's an email exchange between Bethan McEwen, who I think is Mr. Diamond's, or one of his assistants, or someone else working within his team, I think would probably be the most appropriate way of describing it, and Sistra, and they're discussing what's required. And if from Sistra, and if one looks down under, but just over halfway down the page under output, you see that? So it's on an email, so it's, if you've got your front email of the 15th of June, that should have page 1 at the bottom of it.
Yes.
If you go 2 pages on, you should have page 3 of that chain.
Right, yes.
And you'll see, so just to reorientate yourself, near the top of the page, under some gobbledygook, you'll see an email from Bethan McEwen to Alistair Kay at Sistra.
Yes.
And then just over halfway down the page, you'll see output, and you'll see what Bethan McEwen was asking for, which was output data for the AM and PM peak hours for the do-nothing and development options. So that, I think, confirms what Mr. Diamond said yesterday, that they were asking for the peak hour information. But there's then debate, there's then a response from Alistair on page 2 from Sistra to Bethan, and then Bethan then writes to you, and if we turn to the front page, we see her email letter to you, setting out what they propose to do. And if you go to the third paragraph of the email, we propose to adopt the following methodology for preparing the requested transport assessment. So utilise the traffic flow data from Main Street, Westbridge, etc. from the base model. Utilise the generated trips from the new Murray Royal Hospital. Assume no traffic growth. It's the third indentation. No committed development. And then junction modelling will be undertaken through use of standalone modelling exercise utilising LINSIG for the Main Street, West Street, 85 Lockyer Bray junction. So, and then there's then a reference to the CTLR. And the point I think you made in your recognition is that there was modelling coming forward which would have modelled the CTLR,
Yes.
but and the impact of the CTLR, but the applicants decided to go ahead before that modelling was available.
Yes.
But that only would have shown the impact of the CTLR. It wouldn't be of any other particular relevance.
Well, it would have showed the interaction between the downstream and the upstream junctions, which was more of a concern for us in terms of how the whole network works.
Yes, I don't think you've put that in, anyone's put that in an email at the time.
No, I have to say I was surprised that LINSIG was offered up for a tool for analysis, but it's not our remit to dictate what the consultants use. We would have preferred the weight for the 2019 model. That wasn't a significant weight, I might add. That was only a couple of months, probably the latest. So in terms of agreeing the way forward, it was agreed on the basis in the context that, okay, if that's the way you want to do it, then carry on.
Well, I don't think Mr. Diamond was clear about this yesterday. He gave evidence on it, but what is clear is that it was made clear to the council that LINSIG would be used for that junction, and nobody from the council came back and said, no, that's inappropriate, or any of the things you're now saying about it, did they? In fact, we can see what you did say at the top of the page is that I accept what you propose given the timescale for future year testing.
But that we've allotted to use the 2019 model.
So I'd suggest to you that the use of LINSIG model for this junction was entirely appropriate, as Mr. Diamond said yesterday.
I would disagree with that.
Well, why didn't you say so at the time?
It's not my remit to suggest to consultants what model to use. I would have preferred them to wait to the 2019 model. I would have been quite happy with that.
It's certainly not the approach Mr. Marich took. In the earlier email we looked at, he made it clear that the modelling must be based on the parametric system.
Yeah, well, the 2019 model was based on the parametric system.
So he was dictating
Well, I think his language was probably inappropriate at the time, which is why I kind of got involved in this application.
But surely, leaving aside the debate over dictation or not, if you thought it was inappropriate, surely it was you could have advised the applicant that what they were doing was inappropriate, and not wait till they've done it, but tell them beforehand.
As I said, it's not my remit to dictate what consultants use. I mean, ultimately, my expectation at the end of the day, whatever tool is used, is we get an answer that actually reflects what's going on. I was surprised. I wondered how it would come out. I wasn't surprised by the outputs. And here we are.
Well, I'm sure that's... Make it clear, Mr. Deans, I don't accept that. I think that in the context of the government advice about agreeing the scoping for transport assessments, if you had significant concerns, which you now purport to have, as to the use of LINSIG for that model, it would have been incumbent upon you to say so at the time.
Well, I did suggest that they wait to the 2019 model. That clearly wasn't appropriate for the client, so there's not a lot I can do.
Well, even if they'd waited for the 2019 model, there would be nothing to stop them using LINSIG on that model. Because what the use of LINSIG is you feed into LINSIG, as Mr. Diamond explained yesterday, the outputs from the SISTRA modelling.
You feed in the turning counts from the SISTRA modelling. That's all.
And then when, just we can go forward if necessary, when the TA came in, you had SISTRA audit it, didn't you?
Yes.
And you haven't produced that audit?
No.
And so one presumes from that SISTRA found nothing wrong with it?
No.
So they didn't find anything wrong with it?
No, the way the actual modelling was carried out was completely appropriate. I think it was the inputs they were concerned with.
So the way the modelling was carried out was completely appropriate. And just in light of your answer, I just need to... yes, could you turn on to, and apologies, I didn't include this because I didn't think I was going to need it, APP 9.8, which is an email from yourself dated 27th of April. I think the TA was put in either at the end of 2017 or early 2018, and then there were a series of emails chasing for a reaction to it, and I think Mr. Callan deals with that initially by saying we're having SISTRA looking at it. And this is your email, APP 9.8, so it's 27th of April at 15:53. Mr. Welton can provide you a copy. It's just a short... You're responding to Bethan McKeown, who we've met before, and you saying you're actually on leave the following week, but you say you've instructed a fresh set of junction counts, and just reading short, but the last two lines of the main paragraph. We've done this on the basis that we were slightly concerned that the DOS figure that were in the report, as we know the junction is currently congested in the PM peak. So your concerns at that stage appear to be about the Bridgend junction and the PM peak only.
I may have mentioned PM peak, but both peaks are a problem for us, but PM peak in particular, yes.
That's what you say here. Your concerns in 2018 were congestion in the PM peak, and your concerns were recorded as being slight. We'll come on to see how that is reflected in the response, the formal response from your unit. So if you go to, I think it is CD 5.1. Also be found in a number of places, but this is the comments to the development quality manager on the planning application from Transport Planning, and it's from Mr. Marich, who was within your department but presumably authorised to give the response.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, where are we? No.
There's an email from Steve Callan enclosing it. I think it's 5.1. That's.
Yeah. Sorry, that was one.
So can we just go through and see what he said? The proposal was the subject of scoping discussions surrounding the transport issues in the Bridgend area, and unfortunately no agreement was reached on this with the applicant. Well, that's not correct, is it? We've just seen the email where you agreed with Beth and McEwen what should be done. You may have agreed with a caveat, although that's not expressed in the email, but you did agree, so that's simply incorrect, isn't it?
On these terms, yes, it is correct.
Thank you. The applicant then submitted a transport assessment which was subject to a rigorous audit process, which included being assessed using the Perth traffic model and being independently reviewed by Sistra and internally audited by Transport Planning. We've covered the independent review by Sistra, and insofar as in your recognition you query the accuracy of the transport assessment, there isn't any concern about its accuracy, is there? Because we know Sistra independently audited it and found it to be entirely accurate, at least internally as a document.
Yes.
Thank you. Then it says, unfortunately, the TA which was produced by the applicant's consultants was not of the standard that we would expect in terms of robustness. Now, in light of the two comments I'd like to put to you in respect to that. Firstly, in the statement of agreed matters, the Council have accepted that it was produced in accordance with Scottish Government guidelines. And we know from what you've just confirmed that Sistra accurately confirmed that it had been accurately undertaken. So what was the justification for that comment?
He's no longer with us. I have to say it's not words that I would have used.
Because he then provides 5 reasons, and just so you have a note of this. In CD 2.9 there are 2 memos, one of which I think we went to yesterday, which is 12th of July from Mr. Diamond, but the first memo dated the 10th of July deals with these issues, but I don't think I'm going to need to go to that. The first issue he raises in respect of person trip rate data. And Mr. Diamond went through that yesterday and showed, with respect to the transport assessment, where that box was for the person trip rate data, if you recall, and indicated that it doesn't feed into the amount of trips generated by the development in the trip for the modelling exercise.
Yes, I've conceded that point.
Yeah. What Mr. Marich has said at the end of bullet point 1 is that the actual mode split is underrepresented by 8%, thereby fundamentally underrepresenting the amount of trips generated by the proposed development. That is capable, A, of misleading a reader to thinking that the trip generation figures are wrong, but in any event, the words fundamental underrepresenting the amount of trips are a significant overstatement, are they not?
They are. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
That's very clear of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dean. Go on to the second bullet point. Now, this deals with the difference in trips between the proposed use and the last consented use. And we know from the email correspondence that we've just looked at that at this stage, at the stage the transport assessment was being prepared, the council agreed with the approach in the transport assessment. Mr. Marich is here stating that he now disagrees with that, but he doesn't acknowledge anywhere in that bullet point that the transport assessment was done on the basis of an agreed position, does he?
No.
And we could go to the transport assessment figures if you want, but I went through them yesterday with Mr. Diamond. In the morning, departures from the development, the difference, if you take the net rather than the gross, is 3 vehicles. And I would assume that you would agree with Mr. Diamond that that's irrelevant, that difference.
Yeah, these numbers.
And then in the evening, the difference was which is the main thrust of people's concerns, of vehicles returning to the site, the difference would be 10 over the space of an hour. And again, that's de minimis, is it not?
Yes.
So there's nothing in bullet point 2, is there?
No, I've conceded that one.
If we go over the page, the third bullet point is that trip rates that have been provided are not backed up by any data. Now, first of all, Mr. Marich hadn't asked for the data, and secondly, the trip rates, as you agreed, I think in answer to my first question this morning, had actually been provided, the trip data had been provided to him as part of the original assessment. So that's not a fair point either, is it?
No, I understood that's the case. Again, I think I've conceded that.
Fourth point is that no queue length data has been provided to support the conclusions the junction operates satisfactorily at peak times. And then it refers to the traffic surveys carried out in April 2018. Well, firstly, the transport assessment cannot be criticised for not having regard to those traffic surveys because they post-date it. And then, secondly, when Mr. Diamond had suggested himself doing traffic surveys, Mr. Marich had said, no, you should base it on the parametrics model. So that's not a fair criticism either, is it?
It's not something I would have said. I mean, the consultant, again, is perfectly at liberty to do his own counts, more as a validation exercise, but I agree some of the language used by Mr. Marich was probably inappropriate at the time.
Thank you. And in terms of queue length data, hadn't been provided, but numbers of vehicles in the queues have been provided in the transport assessment, haven't they?
I think there was both in terms of the balancing analysis.
And I'll come on to the difference between maximum queues and average maximum queues in a moment. But I'm grateful for your point about the fourth bullet point. As to the fifth bullet point, it is, to summarise it, taking a point about bus services, that the bus services shown in the transport assessment are no longer accurate. Now, as I understand it, well, Mr. Diamond responded to to that by saying they were accurate when the transport assessment was written, but as with all bus services, they do change from time to time, so that it become inaccurate, if that's an appropriate use of the word, as a result of the passage of time. Whether that's a fair criticism or not, it's certainly a factual observation to point out. Now, Mr. Diamond, and I can take you to CD 2.9, pointed out all the points that I just made. But there's what we can agree, I think, in respect to that there's no methodological criticism in that document of the transport assessment that stands scrutiny.
No, in terms of methodology, I have no problems at all with that. It's the outputs at the end of the day, in terms of the queue length, that I have concern with. That was the only point.
I understand your concern with that, Mr. Dean, but when Mr. Diamond, having provided his response, and we can go to it if you want to, but it's basically setting out the points that you and I have agreed in the last 5 minutes, on the 12th of July, there was then debate between the parties about whether the matter would go to committee or not, and there was no further technical feedback from your department on the transport assessment. And in the officer's report that was prepared, 2.3, 2.3 is the officer's report on the, I can never remember which one is which, but I don't think it really matters for this purpose. But if you go to paragraph 112, in fact, it's probably better to start at paragraph 107. Deals with roads. That's a part of the officer commentary section of the report dealing with roads and access.
Yeah.
Now, I think the author of this is Mr. Callan, but I'm not, make it clear in my questions to you, I'm not blaming Mr. Callan for putting it, because he's clearly relaying information from your department. He deals with queue lengths and accessibility to non-car transport modes. And then at paragraph 112 he says this: following a number of requests, the applicant's transport consultant responded to the points raised by transport planning in July 2018. Now that's the document I've just been referring to, CD 2.9. The response, unfortunately, did little to address the concerns raised. Well, the concerns raised we've just been through one by one, and you've accepted that either that they were unjustified, in fact in nearly every case they were unjustified. So to tell the committee that Mr. Diamond had not addressed the concerns raised is, at least in part, misleading, is it not?
Well, I would agree partially with that, Mr. Finney. I think the queue length data was still a concern, and out of the 5 points, the significant concern.
Yes, so of the 5, we'll come on to see how that was worked out. What you had was your 2018 survey and your concern about queue lengths, which you suggested were concerns related to the operation of the junction in the afternoon.
Yes.
But this is misleading the committee, is it not, in terms of what it's being said here, that a number of that the response does little to address the concerns raised. It was only in respect of the one part of the 4th concern that you still had a concern. The other concerns had all been dealt with.
I didn't write the report, so I'm not.
Thank you. Was it Mr. Marich who gave the input that led Mr. Callan to put that in his report?
I suspect it was, yes.
So again, I make it clear, no criticism of Mr. Callan personally in that regard. Could you then take up PKC1 and PKC3, which PKC1 being the sister document from 2019 and PKC3 being your counts on, not your counts because they were done by an independent company in 2018. And just looking at PKC1 first of all, if you go to a few pages into the document, it's very similar to the earlier sister document, not surprisingly. At 2.3.1, we see what sister were asked to do. And if you look in the first bullet point at 2.3.1, you'll see they were asked for the summary of the average and maximum queue length. Now, we know that in leaving aside the period over which the averaging was undertaken, which has been now clarified, but we know that for terms of the information supplied to ARIPS in 2017, they were given the average maximum queue length. Was it, as I understand what we have here, and if one looks to the, and I'll come to the reasoning behind it in a moment, I just want to take it step by step. If you look at the graph on the next page, which is figure 2.2, sorry, graph on the not the next page, the queue length summary page, which is figure 2.6. Because the 2.2 is journey time comparisons. Yeah. What we have there is the maximum queue in every 15-minute period that's been assessed, as I understand it. Yes. So it's not the average of the maximum queues in that period, it's the maximum queue in that period.
Yeah, the top of the graph is maximum queue.
Yeah. Mr. Diamond yesterday, so that's what this shows. So it shows the maximum queue. It's not showing what the average is throughout that period. It's showing what the maximum queue is. Mr. Diamond yesterday said that, in his view, it was appropriate to have regard to the average maximum to get a better feel for the overall junction performance. Was it you that instructed Sistra to provide the maximum queue?
In terms of the 2019
yes.
report? Yes, it was, yeah.
And do you then, because Mr. Diamond, I don't think, was cross-examined about this yesterday, do you not accept then that the average maximum gives you a better indication of the junction performance?
I usually look for both.
But you didn't in this case?
Well, it was a comparator, really, in terms of what the Linsig analysis was saying. And it was significantly, I think the phrase was used, orders of magnitude. And even on average maximum queue, it's still significantly different.
Well, if you take the average maximum queue, we have that in APP16. And we could briefly turn to that if you wish. Just concentrating on the AM peak for Lochie Bray, the AM for Lochie Bray, 18 vehicles. And we have to realise that Sistra provided you it in length of queue in metres, and this is in vehicle units. Are you happy to use Mr. Diamond's approximation of 6 metres per vehicle?
Yeah, well, in Garnick it's slightly different because it's on a hill, but it's marginal difference, so yes.
So the average maximum queue in 2019, according to my mathematics, bearing in mind Mr. Elliott's caveat about lawyers using their brain, is 108 metres.
The average over the morning peak hour is 108 metres. Yes, correct, yes.
That is significantly less than the 300 shown as the peak on your drawing here, is it not?
Yeah, the average queue over there is 108 metres.
It's the average maximum queue.
Yes. Okay.
Not the average queue, the average maximum queue.
Yeah, can I just stop you there, Mr. Finn, in case I get confused? I'm looking at APP 16, and the heading of the top rows says average queue length, and the next set of rows says maximum queue length.
Yeah, you know,
should that actually
should
say
read
average?
Yes, it should do. I think Sistra have been consistent in being providing a misleading title to their graphs, but that's because we know that this is the same data that produced the figure 2.6, so that they should be consistent. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Deans? It's the same data.
It's the same data, and as far as the table, my only issue would be the PM peak is actually 5 till 6 rather than 4:30.
Okay. But we can see here that the average queue length is 12 vehicles, which should be 72 metres, and the average maximum queue is 108 metres.
It's the maximum queues that always concern us.
Yeah. Well, you said earlier that you would be concerned with both. So you were making your judgment on a partial picture and not having the average maximum. That must follow from what you've said.
No, we've got the data for both data sets.
Well, you didn't have the average maximums, did you?
As part of the 2019 model. Yes.
No. Where are they? Because they should be the same as the figure we've just looked at, APP 16.
I do have them.
You may have had them separately from Sistra, but that's why I took you to figure para 2.3.1, where you'd asked for the average and the maximum queue lengths, not the average maximum queue lengths. I'm not being... perhaps I am being pedantic, but what I am suggesting is that you didn't get in this document the average maximum queue length.
With respect, I think it's semantics. I mean, I think the maximum queue length at the bottom table, 18, is over 100 metres. Average over the hour, with a peak at 300 metres.
I don't think it is semantics, Mr. Deans, because your case, in part, rests significantly on the on figure 2.6, as I understand it, and that when Mr. Diamond yesterday said that in respect of average maximum queue lengths of 18 or vehicles in the morning or 13 in the evening, I accept they're longer than his Linsig models, but they're not of an extent to show that there is a real problem at that junction.
I think they're significantly longer than the Linsig analysis. I would disagree with that.
Sorry, I can't. Your voice is very faint.
Sorry, I'll bring it a little bit closer. I would argue that these figures are actually significantly different than the Linsig analysis of magnitude.
Right. But do you say that the average maximum figures of 18 vehicles queuing through the peak period shows a problem on Lockheed Bray in the morning?
It does show a problem, yes.
So the, well, obviously there's a point between you and Mr. Diamond on that. Those 18 vehicles, how long would a queue of 18 vehicles take to clear on Lockheed Bray with a green light? One or two sessions?
Signal time, 20 seconds. That 18 vehicles in queue. I'm doing the maths. It depends on the green time actually at the bottom in terms of the blocking back on the jump in the yellow box. All the green time at Lockheed Bray. It's not often the actual Lockheed Bray queue gets all the green time because of the blocking. Off the top of my head, I would have to do the maths properly, but 5 minutes, a bit more.
I'd suggest that's an overstatement, significant overstatement, and that if you were to gone to Lockheed Bray this morning, you wouldn't see that a queue of 18 cars taking 5 minutes to dissipate. And that's a maximum queue then. There's no disagreement there. Can we then move on? If you look at 2.6, and perhaps if you can do, take figure 2.6 out of your, it's a bit more difficult for the reporter, take well, you may have it in front from 2.6 out of your bundle and turn on to PKC3, because I want to see what the what your robust Sistra model shows you is that the maximum queue for one short point in time at Lockheed Bray reaches 300 metres.
So figure 2.6?
That's figure 2.6, that's what it shows you. Yeah. If you were to go to PKC3, which are your accounts for that day, leaving aside whether one should add 1A and 1B together, just concentrate on 1B. From 8:25 in the morning until 9:30, the figures show over 300 units and indeed up to 560. Does that not suggest to you that there is something unusual happening that day? If you have a maximum queues that are significantly higher than the peak maximum that is ever, not the average maximum, but the absolute maximum that Sistra predicts.
It is a model at the end of the day. It's a tool to help inform our decision making. We will look at, this was observed data on a neutral day. We'll take into account local knowledge. We've all got experience of the junction, so our view on any applications is amalgam of all these issues. So I take your point about there being a huge difference. What I would say is within the modelling run, it's based on a set of simulation runs. So there will be some runs it's actually a lot higher than the 300 metres. There'll be some slightly less.
Not sure about that, Mr. Deans, because you've got the maximum queue, 300.
Yes.
Mr. Diamond explained to us yesterday that the average maximum takes into account the averaging over the simulation run. So you've got the highest queue in the simulation run was 300, yet on this day you've got up to 560, which is nearly double.
Well, in another simulation run it might have been slightly different. It differs all the time. This is an average. Did
this not cause you any concern?
I was surprised, yes. My observations at Lockheed Bray are back up to the junction at Muirhill Road. Typically most mornings. That's going back further.
Did this not, well, again, I'm not going to go into uncollaborated observations, but if we then look at what's happening on Main Street that morning, that's the road coming in from Scone, and I think that what we need to look for there which is slightly complicated, is 1I. And I think 1I is on certainly the way my sheets are printed out, is on a single file sheet that looks like that. So you just need to carry forward in the same doc. Have you got
I've just got the graph.
You've got the whole thing, do you? You have the advantage of me, but can you? You could perhaps then help confirm that I'm not setting down on a wild goose chase. That for the Thursday the 19th, the 1I profile begins at 6:30 with 20 vehicles and then 30 vehicles. If you go down, I see you nodding. If you go down, if we look at, and just so the reporter has it, we now need to compare figure 2.9, and that shows that the model is predicting for queue lengths. This is the model that you consider to be robust. Queue lengths of just over 200 maximum queue length. It's from figure 2.9. And we look down I, we can see that from roughly 7:20 in the morning until 10:30, the actual queues exceeded that.
Yes,
Does that not
correct.
suggest a significant problem somewhere in the network? Indeed, they went up as high as 800, which is 4 times the model prediction.
Not strictly correct. What we've got here is two different queues. Effectively, the Main Street queue in the graph, figure 2.9, is effectively the queue from the junction, the A93 junction at Lochie Bray to the next set of signals at the split between A93 and 94. Whereas the Main Street queue length in this figure is actually the queue from the junction through the next junction and up to 94. So it's 2 queues in effect.
So what is the maximum length of queue that could have been recorded in figure 2.9?
If we looked at both sets of junctions, yes, it would be up probably about 600-700, yes. It's not unusual.
This is, as I understood this, what this is showing the. So are you saying that the A93 Main Street is, as I understood the sister document, that's showing the queue that goes back from the junction with Eastbridge Street, Lochie Bray, towards Scone. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Is that not what then is shown on that was counted in queue lengths by the council in April 2018? It's the same junction.
It's the same junction, but we've just done the queue lengths.
Sorry?
It was to emphasise a point about the importance of the cross-tay. The cameras.
You're talking about
Yes.
vehicles queuing back from that junction in the Scone direction.
Yes.
What you're, I think when you get about 200 or 300 metres back, are you about the quick fit at that stage?
Yes, near enough, yes.
If you, what your Sistra production run shows is that the maximum queue at that, albeit that it's maintained for a fair while, is 200 metres.
Yes.
What this is showing is that and it never goes above 200 metres. What this is showing on the day, that was queues up to 800 metres. Again, I suggest to you that shows you that something has happened, and it ties in with the Lochie Bray queues, because as soon as that arm, this is queues of stopped vehicles, as soon as that arm presents a problem, if vehicles are stopping up to 800 metres away from that junction, vehicles will begin to rat run, won't they?
Well, these surveys are all carried out by video analysis, so we can reference each queue length. What generally happens is if there's an issue, either the survey company or the if we get notified by the police, etc., that there's an incident or an accident, we will actually close up the survey. So there was no issues about that survey in that particular day. So that queue is probably an accurate reflection of what actually happened that day.
Well, I'd suggest to you that having a queue that is 4 times as much as the modelled maximum on what is one of your most important junctions on that side of the river either indicates that your model is not robust, or that far, far more likely that there was some incident, potentially missed downstream, which caused vehicles to queue on the A93 Main Street and to rat run down Lochie Bray.
No, I would disagree with that. The queue length in the graph there is effectively a single queue from Lochie Bray right up the Schoon Road. And that's where it comes into the interaction between the junctions that I think I've tried to make the point.
Because if you look at the PM queues for those junctions, if you look at PM queue for Lochie Bray, so we go back to 2.6, the maximum queue length that the model gives is just over 200 metres. And we can see in how the junction actually performed on that day, the maximum queue length actually recorded never got above 100. So in the afternoon,
Never got above 100?
never got above 100 metres from 4:30 to 5:30 if we're looking at the peak hour.
And Lochie Bray?
Yes, if I'm reading, sorry, I may have turned it over incorrectly. Yes, if I'm looking at, I hope I'm reading this correctly, these are designed to make, yes, as I understand it, the Lochie Bray queue, which is, we take to be 1B rather than 1A, from 4:30 starts at 80 and by 5:30 is down at 30 metres.
No, that's not my understanding. From 1530 to roughly 1830, it's well over 100 metres. It's peaking at about 220 metres.
Are we looking at the right thing here? I think Mr. Finley is referring to PKC-03.
Yes, so PKC-3.
And if you look at the various columns for Lochie Bray, you have 1A and 1B. And I think, and I'm sure I'll be correct if I'm wrong, I think what Mr. Finley's saying is if you look at the recorded queues on 1A and 1B from, say, 1530 onwards, the survey ends at 6:30. In 1A and 1B, there's nothing over 100. The highest I can see is 90.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Was that the point
yes,
you're making?
So my apologies to Mr. Deans. I may have, on figure 2.6, it shows, sorry, I think I may have misled you, it shows suggests there might be 2.6 shows a maximum of 200, but over 100 for most of the time.
Yes.
That's maximum queue length. But we know what was actually recorded that day was never exceeded 100. For the reasons the report has just outlined.
Main Street in the PMP.
No, Lochie Bray.
Lochie Bray.
That way may be where the confusion lies. That's accurate, isn't it, Mr. Deeds?
Well, the observed survey was an observation taken on that particular day, yes. The model
Was showing a worst case basis than observed. And if you look at the Dundee Road figures, which are, or the Dundee Road projection, which is figure 2.7, it's suggesting that there could be, the model suggesting there could be queues up to 500 units, 500 metres on the day. It peaks and troughs, but one can see, so that's figure 2.7. If you go to the Dundee road figures, which are the A85, so that's 1C and 1D, not quite sure which one, probably one should take 1D. In the PM, you'll see, or 1C, 1D, even if you were to combine them together, which I'm not sure is appropriate, you get no higher than about 310, as I read it. And I'm not suggesting that the model is inaccurate, but what I am suggesting is that that is a further indication that in the afternoon, when any potential incident is cleared, the maximum queue length are showing a picture that is actually materially worse than what was recorded on that day. And that is another factor to suggest that the morning's figures were atypical. So I'm suggesting that shows your model is indeed robust.
I would obviously concur it's robust, yes. Again, I would come back to the point that we take various factors into consideration when we're reporting on any application. And certainly I think that some of the photographs that were shown yesterday by Jen Gannicke would confirm some of the issues that the System 19 model is picking up.
Yeah. I will ask Bridger and Gannicke about those photographs, but you produced some photographs which go with the counts on that day, and they clearly show queuing right back up to the junction at the top of the Bray. I'm not asking you about that, but that's the evidence you produced. You rely on the SISTRA document from 2019, and we have the average maximum queue lengths from that now, and you rely on the that count on that day. And that's the substantive evidence before me upon which I can cross-examine. Right, could we then move to your recognition?
Have we finished with big scary spreadsheets?
Have we finished with?
Big scary spreadsheets.
Yes, we have. Hopefully for the rest of the inquiry. If you turn, it's not paginated, but I've put paragraph numbers on it. So paragraph 3, which is the second paragraph under the introduction section.
Regen setup.
Sorry?
Regen setup.
Sorry, this is your recognition. So page 1.
Yes.
Paragraph start, it is of note. And we've discussed the embargo already. The embargo relates to development to the east of Bridgend Junction, and you confirm that in terms of traffic coming from the east, this development is not going to impact on, it's not going to add to that traffic.
Not that traffic, no.
Okay. So whilst the Wari Royal is not part of the embargoed area, the impacts in terms of the addition on existing levels of traffic at Bridgend could be the same. You then go on to say it's of note that major housing proposals in existing LDP at Scone North, Bertha Park and Almond Valley all have consents linked to the committed scheme. Those schemes are materially larger, are they not?
They are significantly larger, yes.
And their impact could not possibly be the same.
I mean, apart from the Scone North site, which we could argue will have an impact on Bridge End, Bertha Park and Almond Valley are over the western side of the city.
Yes, no, I'm aware where they are.
Yeah.
But Scone North, how big is Scone North?
700.
Yes, and that will undoubtedly have an impact on Bridge End because it.
Yes.
But for the reasons you've just accepted, no traffic is going to be coming from the east towards the Bridge End junction from our development.
Traffic could be coming the other way in terms of crossing West Bridge Street.
Could do. And in the evening there may be some traffic, but if the concern is, as it would appear to be from the embargo of traffic coming from the Scone direction, we're not going to contribute to that. Paragraph 4, I think I dealt with. Paragraph 6 is the Bridge End current setup. That's the bottom of page 1. Mr. Diamond made the point yesterday that, and I don't think he was aware, but you may be able to assist. Is there set pedestrian time, whether it's called for or not, on the arms of that junction?
Yes, there is a separate pedestrian phase in the whole cycle, yeah. And certainly from my observations, it's pretty busy pedestrian-wise. It's usually called every cycle, for obvious reasons, just to let people cross the road.
Yeah, well, absolutely, that's what they're there for, Mr. Dean, so I think we can take that as read. But if there's nobody crossing the road and no one requests, do you still get a pedestrian
No,
phase?
you shouldn't do, yeah.
You shouldn't do?
No.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask. If we go to the second page and to the heading Transport Assessment Concerns, you say the issue for the Council is whether the report is accurate. Now, that's the remark I referred to earlier. There is no problem with the accuracy of the transport assessment, is there?
Only in terms of queue lengths coming out the Linsig analysis. That's the issue we have.
In terms of the data and figures, it is accurate, is it not?
I think we'd have to agree to disagree on that point.
Well, interesting use of the word accurate then. And then you say a site visit at peak times prior to producing the report would have highlighted the queuing issue. Are you suggesting that Mr. Diamond never went there?
Maybe Mr. Diamond can confirm that.
Well, he gave evidence yesterday that he is very familiar with that junction, not only for this project but for other projects, including the TAC Trams project. Are you suggesting he never went there?
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that surely if he was there at that time in the morning, he would have noticed some of the queue levels. Well,
Mr. Diamond gave evidence about that yesterday. I suggest to you that that is, frankly, a mildly insulting comment, Mr. Deans, to make of another transport consultant.
Well, it was never meant to be.
Does it really form part of your case?
No, it's just a
Thank
general
you.
comment.
If we go to the bottom of that page, paragraph 15, you point out the main point of contention for transport planning I think we're aware of that. I don't think I need to ask you if I've dealt with that. Go over the page to what is, I think, paragraph 17, which is the second paragraph on the next page. I think I've actually picked that comment up on the way through the discussion. But the Paramics model that you instructed the use of in 2019 had, I think, as the evidence from Sistra indicates, exactly the same base inputs as the one that was used by ARAP or provided to ARAP in 2017, save for that there may have been changes to committed development.
That's correct, yeah.
And you felt that that adequately portrayed the junction at Bridge End?
Yes.
Even though it was on the same basis as the 2017?
It was, yes.
So, in terms of, the reporter can record that in terms of upstream junctions and downstream junctions, you think the Sistra approach in those two models was adequate?
Yes, there would have been slight differences between the outputs because we've got 2 years additional traffic effectively, but the principles are the same, yes.
Thank you. Very helpful. Then, in paragraph 18, you make the point that the Sistra model was not supplied with a transport assessment, which it wasn't.
No.
But that clearly didn't provide you with a problem in auditing the transport assessment, because otherwise you would have asked for a copy of the model. And I can tell you why it didn't, because you asked Sistra to audit it, and they would have had all the data in any event.
Well, no, we asked Sistra to audit the transport assessment. The Sistra 2017 report was an ARAPS report. We never had sight of that output, as it was obviously confidential between ARAPS and Sistra. We didn't see the Sistra 17 report till much, much later on.
But in terms of if the Sistra 2017 report was for ARAPS, it's not an ARAPS report, it's a Sistra report.
For ARAPS, yes.
In terms of Sistra auditing the transport assessment, they cannot have been, in any realistic sense, been prejudiced by not having sight of the report that they themselves had produced. They would have been able to assess, so I think you've accepted that the transport assessment was accurate, and that transport assessment itself, as pointed out yesterday, makes it clear that its inputs come from a Sistra report.
I'll caveat that a bit. The inputs into the Linsig model, which was the basis of the transport assessment, were effectively the turning flows from the junction out of the Paramics model.
Yes.
The Paramics model was never actually used, as it should be, within the transport assessment. Only the turning counts were actually taken out of it. Paramics is a highly complex visual tool with, you can see real-time displays of traffic moving through the network. It was never actually used. ARAPS only took the turning counts out.
Well, I'm not going to go back over old ground about what ARAPS said they would do and what they did, which was to use Linsig. But they used the turning counts out of the Sistra report because that's what is relevant for the junctions, I would suggest, and junction capacity. And that the suggestion here that you were somehow, perhaps I should ask, is there a suggestion that you were somehow disadvantaged by not having the Sistra report till a later date?
I had concerns when I saw the Linsig analysis initially, because I knew from experience that doesn't reflect the situation. When I saw the Sistra 17 report, when I saw the spreadsheet behind it, I realised what had happened.
Well, it's interesting. It's not an answer to the question I asked you. The question I asked you, Mr. Deans, was did you feel disadvantaged at any stage in not having a Sistra report earlier?
No.
Do you? See, Mr. Diamond's evidence is that even if you look at the turning movements or the figures that the maximum queue lengths, average maximum queue lengths that you get out of the Sistra report whether produced in 2017 or as updated in 2019, shows a significantly different picture from the maximum queue lengths, and only the maximum queue lengths, that the Council presented in its 2019 report.
I think we kind of covered this point late yesterday afternoon in terms of the difference between the peak period and the peak hour, which is a significant
sure about
difference.
that. The point I'm getting at, Mr. Deans, is that in your 2019 report, which you rely on, you only present maximum queue lengths.
Yes.
Not average maximum. So it gives them effectively a misleading picture as to the likely wait time for vehicles and queue lengths, and that if you have regard to the average maximum queue lengths, you get a significantly lower figure and a significantly lower level of concern.
I would disagree with that. I think maximum queue is a problem. Certainly in terms of interaction with the junction at Muir Road, Garnicaria, potentially moving up further up Muir Road, potentially at the hospital site accesses. So, no, I would always go. I take your point about average queue, but maximum queue is the issue for the Council.
As to the empirical evidence before the inquiry, the number of occasions in a year when the maximum queue exists or up to the junction that we're concerned about, on my calculation, I think there are 3 days.
Sorry, I don't...
There are 3 days of where the evidence before the inquiry, photographic evidence or other evidence,
Yes.
shows queues back up to that hospital junction.
Yes.
If we come then to the further information section of your evidence, which is paragraph 19, the first paragraph there, this is about producing further evidence. As I understood the Council's case at this stage, this is late 2018, early 2019. You wanted ARIPS to demonstrate no net detriment from the number of units that might be produced on the refurbishment of the hospital.
Correct.
And then to delay the other units coming forward until the CTLR was, is it committed or open? What's the Council's position?
Committed.
Committed.
Yes.
And what's the current committal date for CTLR?
That's a difficult question to answer. People will probably be aware that there was a Council meeting last week to effectively verify the route of the cross-stay. The latest timescale is contract award October 21. There will be a bit of mobilisation involved after that. I would assume committed, which effectively means starting work on the ground January 22. I would guess, but it's very difficult to give a.
So, just taking those dates, January 22. Given we are where we are today in June of 2019, and the time period for even if permission was granted for then satisfaction of conditions, work is not going to begin on site until 2020. If you were to say that 30 units would be produced in the first 2 years, just say, do you have a serious concern about the impact of 30 units before the CTLR is committed?
30 units, I mean, to be perfectly frank, I mean, not going into sort of complex modelling issues, the queue in Lochie Bray will effectively remain as it is because the main, in terms of the cycle times at the junction, will always give most time to the other arms, which are more heavily trafficked. The reality is the development trips, starting without any condition on it, will just add to the end of that queue. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I understand your point, and we disagree about the evidence on queuing and whether you've got any case there at all, but just want to understand your position. Are you saying that no units at all should be allowed coming down, which might give rise to a trip coming down Lochie Bray before CTLR is committed?
Well, what I'd said to the applicant, and this
No,
was...
no, Mr. Deans, I want your case today. Is your case today that no units should be allowed before CTLR is committed?
Yes.
Anywhere in Ganachie?
Yes.
That might... Well, Mr. Deans, I'd suggest to you that that is an implicit embargo that's got no support anywhere within transport or planning policy.
Well,
What you're seeking to do is to provide an informal embargo on any development in the Ganachie area that might lead to a trip that adds to the queues on Lochie Bray.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant if we're persuaded by a transport assessment, whatever the development may be, that it's supportable, then we will obviously take that view. There will obviously be significant other planning issues involved, but especially if it offers a no-net detriment solution, we would support that.
So that's what I come back to. And come back to my question. What trip rate, what a number of additional vehicles would you accept arriving at the end of the Lochie Bray queue today from any new development in the Ganachie area? Is it got to be zero, or if it's more than zero, what is the figure?
It's a very difficult question to answer. I would still maintain, in terms of the situation at Lochie Bray at the moment, any development coming on in terms of looking at when the Cross-Tay Link Road does happen, I would look for some sort of mitigation measure to offset the development trips. That would be my view.
I can understand your request for mitigation measures, and the applicants have offered mitigation measures. But even with mitigation measures, you're still going to have additional trips. You're still going to have additional vehicles using Lochie Bray first thing in the morning at the peak hour period. Unless you mitigate a development such that there is no traffic coming from it, which is inherently implausible.
Well, we'll mitigate the effect of the AM peak period trips in terms of we asked for some sort of measures to be put forward so we could take a look at, and we could support that, but that was never given.
Yeah, that's what I come down to. There's correspondence written to the council, and I can take you to it, it's in the bundle, saying that we understood that to be your position, but given that you, until your evidence in this case, had not had, in fact even now, have not pointed to any discrepancy in the transport assessment, how was ARAPS to demonstrate no net detriment if you didn't accept their basic workings and hadn't told them why not?
Well, that was what we asked them to do. We had the 2019 sister report. We met with Mr. Diamond. I had thought we had agreed a way forward.
No, you didn't have the 2019 sister report when you met to
No,
Mr.
sorry,
Diamond.
I didn't. No. The 2017 report, yes.
What you asked, yes, but come back to take that question step by step. You did not point out at any stage to Mr. Diamond any technological or other inaccuracy in his transport assessment or in the 2017 sister report, did you?
Probably not at the time. I do now.
You do now, absolutely. So that's my point. You do now, very late in the day. But when you were asking Mr. Diamond and through him the appellant to show no net detriment, how were they meant to do that if you hadn't pointed out to them any errors in their traffic assessment, but you just said you didn't accept it? I mean,
our ups are
I don't know whether you're watching Catch-22 at the moment, but you put them in a Catch-22 position.
No, I think the meeting with Mr. Diamond was actually very productive from my perspective. It wasn't a significant piece of work we were asking to do. In terms of a phased development, we were actually thinking of probably 15 units per year. It's not a huge bit of work to ask. It was something we could actually hang up effectively our approval on.
But that's what I've just asked you, Mr. Deans. 15 units a year is equivalent to the 30 in 2 years I was putting to you. That's why I was pressing you on what trip rate you would accept. And the impression I've got is that you wouldn't accept any new vehicles adding to the Lockheed Bray.
If they could mitigate the development, yes, I would accept it.
So what level of new vehicles adding to the queue would you accept? What trip rate in the peak hour period would you accept?
I mean, that would depend on the application coming forward. They may have various other reasons that it could be supported. But the queue length at the moment is a problem for us. And I, you know, from a purely transport planning perspective, I don't think adding anything to that queue is a productive measure.
So why did you take a different approach with the Ganaki development when you were when the officer's report makes it clear you're only concerned if there's a 4% or above increase? You can go to the report if you wish.
I wasn't specifically involved with the Ganaki development. My understanding it was a much smaller site, a different type of site.
The principle is the same, Mr. Deans. Says that expressly in the report, APP-14, that if provided the percentage increase was less than 4%, there's no undue concern. Now, you appear to be taking a far, far stricter approach to this application.
I think the Ganaki development is a slightly different development from Murray Royal. I mean,
of course, they're all different developments, but in terms of the transport impacts on Lockheed Bray, they're going to, whichever way you cut the cake, Mr. Deans, they're going to produce vehicles arriving at the top of Lockheed Bray, adding to whatever queue that may be there, whether it's the top, middle, or near the bottom. But the council's approach to that development appears to be quite inconsistent with the approach to this development.
We were obviously persuaded by the case for the Ganaki development.
And you applied a different test. You didn't say no new vehicles. You said, provided, apparent in the officer's report is the committee were told that it was a committee that dealt with it, provided it's less than 4% impact on the junction.
From a daily perspective, yes.
Well, from a daily perspective, this is less than 4%, isn't it?
Yes, I would agree with that. But it shows you the volume of traffic that's actually going through the junction. But again, I would come back to the point that it's the queue in the morning and evening peaks that we've got concern over.
Finley, I'm conscious that it's 11 o'clock. Right, well, shall we take our mid-morning break? So if we can come back for 11:15 and we'll reconsume. We'll assume. Mr. Finley, do you have any further questions of Mr. Deans?
Yes, so just one, picking up on a comment I think Mr. Deans made in one of his last answers to me when I was putting the analogy or the comparator of Ganaki to him. I think, Mr. Deans, you said that other planning considerations may also come into the picture in determining whether something was acceptable or not. And I see you nodding. Clearly, and it's a matter for the reporter, but one of those would be the potential impact of any delay on the existing fabric of a Grade A listed building. I'm not a planner, but I would agree with that in principle. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you. The Community Council doesn't get to cross-examine Mr. Deans, but do you have any questions for clarification?
Yes, sir, we do have 4 questions. And first of these, I think, hopefully can be helpful. And this was picking up on the question, Mr. Deans, that you were asked about by Mr. Finlay about what would be the queuing time on traffic coming down Lockheed Bray for a queue of, say, 18 cars. And we can actually give you some input to help that calculation between the two of us, so we can resolve that, I think, quite easily.
It's going to undermine my cross-examination.
Yes.
I'm providing.
You'll need to rephrase that. I'm very happy to exercise my discretion and allow the Community Council to ask questions of clarification, but you can't use them as a way to effectively feed information to the witness. That's Mr. Elliott has a chance to re-examine afterwards. So you can't help Mr. Deans. He's been asked a question, and he answered as he answered. I think you'll need to rephrase.
Might I suggest that this is evidence the Community Council could themselves give? If they've done the calculation, that may be the easiest way around it.
So, yes, if
The point is that we have a piece of information that could provide some clarification, but we would need Mr. Deans to complete the calculation. So that my question was essentially provide clarification on Mr. Finlay's question about the queuing time on Lochie Bray. If that helps explain, without wishing to be sounding supportive. It was for clarification rather than anything else.
Well, if it's for clarification, and I'm sure Mr. Finlay will let me know if you strayed beyond normal conventions.
Right.
Perhaps I could reserve the right to cross-examine further once the clarification answer is given, because otherwise the appellant is unfairly denied the opportunity of cross-examining Mr. Deans on his evidence. But hopefully that won't arise. But
right, we'll move on if this particular one is an issue to Mr. Finlay. Second question for clarification, and this relates to the point that was being raised about the significance of traffic coming down Lochie Bray and its potential impact on the traffic queuing and congestion. In your opinion, Mr. Deans, when congestion reaches saturation levels, is an increment of a few cars, and let's not go back through the numbers that we're talking about here, does that present an issue or not?
I tried to be very simplistic in my earlier answer in terms of there's probably not much we can do with the Lochie Bray queue at the moment, given the heavy demand on the other arms in the junction. Simplistically, any development traffic will add to the end of that queue. But I do take your point about the relationship between a fairly small amount of vehicle traffic, but the incremental, it's almost an exponential type of relationship. So, in theory, that probably would apply in this case.
So, just for clarification, is that the asymptotic effect of that queuing theory?
This is not clarification. He's putting the witness has come out with exponential, which is a change of his position, and this question is suggesting phraseology. I mean, I'm sorry to be difficult about this, but and I understand the position of the Community Council, but should really not be allowed to put words into Mr. Deans's mouth. It's really meant to be factual clarification, as I understood it.
Yes, Mr. Fleming, I completely understand that there's no reason why people were born understanding the conventions of public inquiry. But the convention, when parties have very similar positions to each other, and the community council and the council are coming from the same perspective. I know they're not identical, but a similar perspective. So that's why I said at the beginning, you don't get to cross-examine. It's not an opportunity to ask friendly fire questions to assist your case. You have an opportunity when you give evidence. So when you give your evidence in chief, you can make these points, or you can wait to the cross-examination. I extended the invite if there was anything that you wanted for clarification from Mr. Deans. There are other mechanisms for you to convey to me your perspective on the evidence, either when you give your own evidence or in your closing submission. So do you have any questions of clarification of Mr. Deans?
Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate your guidance and assistance on these matters. One question that we certainly weren't clear about was the difference between the 2015 Paramics model and the 2019 Paramics model with regard to planned and proposed development. We would appreciate clarification on what the 2019 model, or how it differs, if you like, from the 2015.
The 2015 base model, Paramics model, was effectively the model that was developed from a series of surveys in 2015. As I said, it's a fair bit of work after that. Doing the surveys is actually the initial phases of model building. The model didn't become available till 2017. But effectively, the base model reflects the conditions at that particular time. The 2019 model, you'll appreciate things happen, developments come on stream, there is growth, both local growth and strategic growth. So the 2019 model will actually have incorporated that. So there is a subtle difference, yes.
So just to be clear on that, the 2015 Paramics model didn't include some of the proposed and planned development. Is that correct? That was shown in the 2019 model?
It would have just reflected the conditions at that particular time, yes.
Thank you. That's all, sir.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Deans, I said yesterday that I had some generic questions I was asking all witnesses. I don't expect you to remember those. So, in the general case, ignoring the particular proposals before me, what issues would you expect to observe at a junction that was at or over capacity?
In simplistic terms, queuing, frustration. Effectively, these two actually probably cover most of it. Yeah.
And in the general case, do junctions suddenly fail, or is there kind of like an incremental development where things get steadily worse and worse?
They can fail in certain situations, particularly if there's a major issue, maybe a major development that's not being looked at properly. But in the case of Bridgend, as I probably referred to earlier in my recognition, it's been a fairly long-standing problem, even since early 2000s. It's probably got incrementally, that's the phrase I think you're looking for, incrementally worse over the years. There is, as I think it was highlighted yesterday, Perth is a growth area. there are developments coming on stream. People will drive, so the bridge end junction is unfortunately one of the kind of critical parts of the Perth network. So it's likely to take the impact of all that additional traffic, or some of that additional traffic. So, but generally, incrementally, it's probably been getting worse. And I think that's actually reflected by some of the turning counts we've actually carried out. The actual turning counts is effectively the cars that actually get through the junction during the cycles. The 2015 counts and the 2018 counts were broadly comparable. And I think that what that effectively means is there is no additional traffic can get through the junction. It's effectively operating at the maximum it can. And that's effectively why the queue lengths on the arms at the junction are effectively beginning to get worse. And unfortunately, Lochie Bray takes the hit in most of that.
Okay, thank you. In your experience, what sort of daily or seasonal variations would you normally expect to see, and what would be exceptional?
Exceptional in Perth terms is usually one of the major events probably up at Scone Palace, the Rewind Festival, Perth races. These are exceptional events. And the city centre is effectively chronic at that particular time. Effectively, that's one of the reasons or the advantages of the cross day will actually take a lot of that traffic out. In terms of seasonal variation, there's probably not much. I mean, it will be slightly less during the school holiday period. Typically, though, day to day, it's probably much about the same.
In terms of the bridge end junction, in your view, are there any arms that are more important than others?
No, I mean, as I probably referred to earlier, it works under an optimisation process. What that does in simplistic terms is try and balance the delays as much as possibly can in terms of optimum delays. It is what it is. Lochie Bray, in traffic terms, is there's a lot less traffic on Lochie Bray than the other arms. These are two A-class roads effectively coming into Perth, middle of Perth. So Lochie Bray, in some respects, has to take the impact from that.
I don't know if you can recall, but I asked Mr. Diamond what, in his opinion, was the threshold of an unacceptable impact on a junction, and I noted his answer as not clearing within 2 cycles was what drivers would perceive as acceptable. What would be your comments on that? What in your view is an unacceptable threshold?
No, yeah, I would tend to agree with that, actually. That would be unacceptable. I think it does happen at Bridgend, but we are where we are at the moment. I think, sorry, just to add to that, I think you brought up a significant issue yesterday in terms of the right turn coming out of Lochie Bray. If there is, I know there's not a heavy volume coming out of that particular movement, but if that vehicle happens to be at the front of the queue, there is an issue.
Yes, I'll come on to that in a minute. And I also asked Mr. Diamond, in his opinion, what level of development would be unacceptable, and he caveated his answer by saying he hadn't done that calculation, but his kind of rough idea is that you could safely double the development. What would you comment on that answer?
I would have to disagree with that. Yeah. Given we know what we know with Bridgend, particularly Lochie Bray, in terms of some of the evidence that's come before us, I would disagree with that. Yeah.
And could the Lockheed Bray arm of the junction be unusually fragile, which is why sometimes it's reported it works fine, and other times we have the kind of cues that we've seen in the photographs?
Yes, I think it is fragile. There will be probably times during some days it may work. It may seem to work reasonably well. I think on the whole, though, there is an issue with Lockheed Bray queues. Most sort of Monday, Friday days of the week, anyway. But it is fragile in terms of it's very much the minor arm. As I said, it's two A-class roads and the Perth Bridge effectively linking it all together. So these are all fairly heavily trafficked arms. I think we've seen some of the tables that illustrate some of the queues, and some of these arms are far greater than the Lockheed Bray queue. That's not to downplay the Lockheed Bray queue, but it is where it is, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Right. If you can just give me a minute, because often my specific questions get covered in cross-examination. Yesterday I noted that Mr. Diamond said that in his opinion the junction had a peaky peak. Would you agree with that comment?
To a certain extent, yes. I think the problem with peaky peaks is they get longer. That's probably certainly been the case over the last few years, and it probably will be the case until the Cross-Tay Link road is, well, committed or constructed. Yes, the peaky peaks can be 10 minutes, but that soon becomes 15 minutes, becomes 20 minutes, so it's not going to go the other way, unfortunately.
Do you think the efficiency of the junction can be improved by removing the pedestrian phase or altering the control of the junction at all?
We could alter the control of the junction in terms of giving more green time to Lockheed Bray, but I'm not sure why we would penalise drivers that are on the network just to accommodate development traffic. In terms of taking the signal phase out, absolutely no way. Pedestrian safety would be our major concern at any junction. People have to cross the road. If we take the pedestrian phase out, that just invites a risk situation, which I don't think we would support in any shape or form.
Just to make it clear, there was never any suggestion to take the pedestrian phase out, which was what Mr. Deans may have been implying, but there is.
Okay, I'll look at my notes. Is it your view that any Lin-SIG assessment is worthless in the context of the Bridge End junction?
Ultimately, it's output at the end of the day in terms of we think what's coming out is a reflection of what's actually happening. I wouldn't use it. We don't use it in Perth. I certainly wouldn't use it in any of the city centre junctions. It may be appropriate for maybe some of the borough towns, but if you're in a complex network which is closely linked by different junctions doing different things, no, the only way you can really look at it is through a micro-simulation model. Most authorities probably tend to have these, certainly the city authorities, so it's standard practice these days.
Is there any conceivable scenario that the Cross-Tay Link Road won't get built?
As I said earlier, it's difficult to be definite about these things. The Cross-Tay, in terms of where we are, we're at the fairly advanced design stage at the moment. The next stages will be a full planning application over the next couple of months. We have CPO to go through. We'll go through the whole sort of tendering process. So there are quite a few variables in the mix yet. My best guess would be the Council has committed significant funding to this scheme. We have support from Scottish ministers through additional funding. Given we can accommodate these hurdles I mentioned earlier, I think it will happen. That would be my view. Sorry, I should actually add, stage 1 has actually happened. It's actually been built. Yeah.
Can I take you to the corrected APP-12? That's the annotated aerial photographs of the junction.
Sir, I don't think the witness will have that before him. I'm not sure.
If I recall correctly, Mr. Diamond yesterday said the purpose of that was to show that there wasn't any significant difference between actual turning counts between the outputs from the Pramex model and the Council's April 18 traffic survey. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think I referred to it earlier. It's the turning counts is effectively what gets through the junction. Unfortunately, it's not what gets through the junction that is our concern. It's what's left at the end in terms of the queuing. That's the issue for us.
And in your experience, how frequently do the queues that have been shown in the photographs, how frequently do they happen?
My own view would be very frequently. Not all the time, but very frequently.
What does very frequently mean? Are we talking daily, weekly, monthly?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, and I've travelled through that junction many times over the years, in both the peak periods, is it's always been a problem. Sometimes you may occasionally get through for some reason unknown, but most of the time you will be sitting in a queue at Lochie Bray.
So you're saying it's certainly daily, well, certainly weekly, could even be daily?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all my questions. Mr. Elliott, any questions in re-examination?
I think really just the one, Mr. Deans, do you consider the transport assessment that was submitted reflects 2015 or current conditions, never mind the proposed development, at least in respect to queue length?
Sorry, I didn't quite...
Do you consider the transport assessment that's been submitted by ARLS
Yes.
reflects current 2015 or current conditions, never mind with the proposed development built in as well, particularly in relation to queue length?
Well, the 2019 model actually, we've seen some of the queue lengths from the amended queue lengths and queue data from last night. The answer would be no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deans. That's your shift over. We'll just take a small 5-minute break for us to swap witnesses. Who will appear first for the Community Council?
If it's the correct protocol, sir, I can give a brief outline and then introduce Mr. Beattie as our first witness.
Mr. Beattie and Mr. Rivet in that order, and you will be leading the witnesses.
Yes.
And it's not for me to coach you, but my advice is that the purpose of re-examination is to refer to matters that have happened since the precognitions were written. That's the key focus.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just take we'll start again at 10 past. 10 to. Okay, Mr. Fleming, do you want to introduce your first witness?
Yes, thank you, sir. And to do that, I'll set a bit of background, if I may. And basically, the objective of the Community Council being here is to essentially convince you that the appellant has not submitted a transport assessment which provides sufficient evidence on the impact of traffic for these applications to be granted planning permission. But secondly, to convince you that should you be so minded with regard to recommending approval, that there's actually insufficient evidence regarding the Cross-Tay Link Road to permit interim housing development on the site. So the background of this from our perspective is to point out first and foremost that we are the only representatives here who are not professional. I mean that in two senses. One is that we're not lawyers and we're not professional planners. But secondly, we're the only ones in this room who are not being paid to be here. And that means that we've actually volunteered a great deal of our time to be here. And why is that? When the easy option would have been just to do nothing and let things roll over, not get involved, if you like. Well, we're here because the community has significant concerns with these planning applications. Amongst other things, we believe that they would further disrupt both the private and commercial traffic using the road network, particularly through Bridgend, but most importantly, as we pointed out earlier, we actually believe that they would increase the harm to our community's health and indeed safety, and in particular the elderly in the area and the primary school children. We have a higher percentage, by the way, of elderly in our community than the average. And there are road safety issues. Lochie Bray, as we well know, is very narrow and quite a difficult road for traffic and for pedestrians. We also have issues that we've identified at Backwind, turning or jumping the lights of the norm at the Bridgend Junction, and we have the rat run through the Ganachie estate. So it's our assessment that the incumbent needs to demonstrate that their proposed developments would not have a significant impact, and we don't think they've done that, because instead of a perhaps credible transport assessment, we've had now no fewer than 6, and it has been increasing almost daily, attempts to assess the traffic congestion picture. We've had the Arup transport assessment based on the 2015 Paramix model and the Linsig model, Perth and Cross Council's traffic survey, Perth and Cross Council's 2019 model.
Mr. Fleming, I don't wish to be harsh. I don't want to be harsh, and I do understand that you want to tell me stuff, but I have, of course, read your inquiry report. You will have seen from Mr. Finlay and Mr. Elliott's evidence-in-chief. The purpose of evidence-in-chief is to ask questions of your witness for matters that have happened since the precognition was written. Conventionally, that would be what the other parties have said, or points that have been picked up in the inquiry. All the things that you're telling me are all very good points, but that's something that should really be in your closing submissions, and we don't really need to waste inquiry time on that sort of statement.
Thank you, sir, for that. I was merely setting the context, if you like, for questions to Mr. Peaty and, in fact, then to Mr. Ribbett. So I shall move on to those, if I may. First of all, Mr. Peaty, can you do a brief introduction, please?
Okay. Dave Beattie. I'm the Vice Chairman of Bridgend, Ganachie and Canoe Community Council. I'm a retired chemical engineer, and I'm a resident of Bridgend, Ganachie and Canoe.
Thank you. Now, I want to pick up on Mr. Diamond's comments and the evidence that he's provided in cross-examination. And it really picks up on what in your recognition you had stated as a mind-boggling error. So can you comment on that, please, where we are?
Okay. In my precognition, I pointed out 4 errors. 3 of them have been totally confirmed. The error in the hospital being subtracted, the fact that the model was not updated for 2019 traffic conditions, and the fact that new developments hadn't been included. The 4th error was one that I, in my precognition, said was mind-boggling. And this, I think Mr. Deans has alluded to. This junction, by the Linsig model, is treated in isolation. It's as though it were, if you like, in the middle of the desert. The cars can reach this junction, all the vehicles could reach the junction, but when they leave the junction, there is absolutely no impediment on them going anywhere. Right? The model is set up that once they're through the junction, they go off to the blue yonder. Now, that doesn't happen in reality. This junction is bounded by other junctions. The west side of the bridge is 275 metres away from the Bridgend junction. The A93-94 junction is 210 metres away. And very, very often, because of the setting of these lights and because of the downstream traffic, when there's a green light at the Bridgend junction, traffic cannot move through. There was no attempt whatsoever for Mr. Diamond to model this. I asked him how he handled this in his model, and he gave me a reply as to how Linsig optimizes models and changes green lights. Sorry, Linsig does not operate the junction. The junction has to operate as it sees itself, as it's confronted. He gave no explanation. The manual for Linsig says care and consideration must be given to junctions that are blocked. You cannot block the junction in the model. The model doesn't allow you to do it. Another Linsig manual I was reading advised that what you do is look at underutilized green time. In other words, when the green light is going and the car cannot move, then that time needs to be subtracted from the green signal. Again, this was not done. So there was no attempt to realistically model this junction. That is what I call mind-boggling, because this junction is the part of the circuit that our community is most concerned about.
So, Mr. Diamond has been, I guess, repeatedly claiming that his modelling is robust. That's something you don't agree with, is that correct?
I most certainly don't agree with that. I'd like to just step back a little, and because I've been, I don't know, I've been listening to so much about the QLens from models and this model and that model and how they all look and how they compare. The junction's out there. You don't need a model. You could go and look. And that's the reality of it. Observation is always the best thing you could do. Sorry, a model will never, ever replace observation. However, there is a place for a model. You need a model to determine what will happen if you change something in the future. So you need to actually model the present and then look at these future changes and see how they impact. So there is a purpose for a model, but there's a whole number of steps to building that model. First, you need to gather the information for the model. That was done. That was panoramics. You need to check and see if you have all the data. Like, is the junction blocked? Are the exits blocked? Have you actually got the right turning lanes down Lochie Bray? Apparently, we never even checked that. Right? So that wasn't done. The next thing you do is you run the model. That was done. And then you check whether the model is realistic. Are the QLens, are the saturations similar in the model and in the observation? That check was made in 2019. The model was claimed to be robust in 2017. Sorry, the check wasn't made. You then determine the impact of your development because you then have to build the future of your model. How does my development impact on this? We got that wrong. 40% of the vehicles were missed. You then update the model for future development. Didn't do it. You then update the model for traffic. Didn't do it. Right? And I heard Mr. Diamond state that one of the main differences between his model and the 2019 was that the 2019 had been updated for traffic growth and for developments. He said they weren't important. They were very, very important. So the model was not robust. It was not even done correctly.
Thank you. So from what you've heard from Mr. Diamond and the appellants, and from your own, and indeed from the Community Council experience, what is your view on traffic congestion at peak time, Mr. Speaker?
It's the experience of everyone who knows anything about Bridgend that this is a very, very congested junction. And in my view, this junction is saturated much of the time during the peak periods.
Now, there's an awful lot of debate going on, conflicting versions of Q lengths from all these various models and observations. With regard to the differences and conflicting versions, if you like, of the Q length, can you explain those differences?
Well, there is one point where there is no conflict. That is, everywhere there is a visual observation, where there are photographs, where there are Google Maps, where anyone actually takes the trouble to look, there actually hasn't been any conflict. The big reason to me for why I think Arup's model fails is for the very reasons I've given at the beginning. The fact that the exit junctions are very, very frequently blocked. And that is a very significant feature of the model, and that has not been taken into account. So models are models, and I think, as Mr. Dean said, they're very helpful to inform you. But if you start confusing them with reality, then that's a problem to me.
Now, heard the Ganachie planning application being cited by the appellant. That's planning application 17000669 FLM. But can you explain the difference, particularly with regard to generated trip rates, between that planning application and the planning applications that have been submitted?
Well, let's maybe even step further back from that. I think the appellant will recognise that the Community Council did not object to that development. That tells you several things, and you can interpret it in different ways. I think for me it shows that we do look objectively at everything that's happening in our region. We are not NIMBY, and we are very, very much wishing to encourage appropriate development. So we're not stopping them all. Ganachie is a very, very different prospect to what is being proposed at the Murray Royal. The Ganachie development is 1- and 2-bedroom housing. It is set up for elderly people, people who are retired, single people, essentially a kind of residence for older people. Many of these people don't have cars. All of those people, almost all of those people, are not working. And all of the people are smart enough who have cars not to use the Bridge End Junction at peak times. So that sort of development is likely to have a very, very minimal impact on the Bridge End Junction. So I have to say that we did look very, very critically at the traffic study, which I think was done by Mott MacDonald. And that traffic study, which just tells you that models are models are models, that traffic study showed that the junctions, I believe, at 90% saturation. So it actually gave levels that I thought were quite concerning. But this proposal actually added a very, very, very small increment to the base case. I would like to also add that that proposal has already been accepted. It's already in the traffic that will take place in 2020 and 2021. The traffic that we're adding from the Murray Royal is the next layer of traffic. One has to recognise that there is a final straw, and I think we reached it some time ago.
I'm going to jump about a little bit onto Mr. Dean's evidence. And in his cross-examination, Mr. Deans gave an update on the progress of the Cross Tay Link Road. Do you think that's realistic?
To be quite honest, I don't know. And actually, I'm very surprised how Mr. Deans knows. There are so many things that you have to decide upon when you put this Cross Tay Link Road in. The first thing is that the Cross Tay Link Road does actually give us a ring road around the city. That's great news. The bad news is Bridge End is a leg in that, so we are part of the new city ring road. In deciding the impact of the ring road, you have to say what traffic that's currently using the road will stop using the road because there's an alternate route. What traffic may want to use the route that didn't use it previously because there's another access there. You have to say how many houses will be spawned as a consequence of this development, and numbers like 7,000 I'm hearing. How many cars will each of these houses have? Where will they drive to? When will they drive? How many businesses will be spawned by this new population? How many people will come into the city to this business? Which way will they come? And when you answer all those questions, you could do a very good model of what the Crossdale Link Road will do. I actually sent a letter to Mr. Deans asking him how he addressed these questions. I'm still awaiting a reply. So we don't actually have a position on the Link Road. We remain to be convinced. Our view is we'd like to see the Link Road established and tested before we start saying, great, Bridgend has been solved. It may solve Bridgend. People like Mr. Deans, who is an expert, and I have a great deal of respect for, seems to believe that, but he hasn't convinced me, or he hasn't provided me the information to be convinced.
Would you perceive the dates that were given as a best case and perhaps therefore a least likely case?
Yeah, it's like following a hare. It was 2019, it was 2021. It seems to be next year plus 3. So I don't know.
Thank you. Going back to Mr. Diamond and in cross-examination, he made an assertion that at full saturation levels, additional demand would have no effect on queuing. He also then went on, conflictingly, I think, to refer to queue lengths versus demand as being asymptotic. So can you perhaps comment on those two statements?
Yes. Queue theory is something that I'm sure Mr. Diamond's very familiar with, and many of us are in my profession. One of my early jobs in my career was to actually model 3 jetties in Europe and to look at whether we needed to add more jetty space, which is, again, queuing theory. And the very interesting answer that's almost universal, in jetties, is that when the occupancy of a jetty reaches 72%, the cost of the operation of that jetty, because of demurrage costs on ships, begins to go way off track. So there is a figure at which point the cost or the impact of congestion starts to go off asymptotically. Mr. Diamond is suggesting that at 90% saturation, the road is beginning to be a problem. That surprises me. I think it would be a problem at less than 90% saturation. But there is no question when it is 100% saturated, it is a problem. It is when you are actually putting through the amount of traffic that the road has capacity for, it is a problem. You just cannot keep adding more material. And yes, you start going off an asymptote. And that happens very rapidly. And it is a very quick effect as that happens. I believe our road has already reached this point. And I'm certainly surprised that Mr. Diamond felt you could keep adding. No, you can't. There's nowhere for it to go but do as Mr. Dean says, join the end of the queue. The queues have got to keep accumulating.
Another comment from Mr. Diamond, and this was in relation to Linsig modelling, and he declined to answer, claiming that he'd never worked in Australia and therefore couldn't comment. So is Linsig modelling continent so sensitive, do you think?
No. The Australian version of Linsig, in fact, it's exactly the same manual. The difference in the Linsig manual that I was referring to is actually it's written at a different level. It is written more to guide a layman to some extent. If you read the Linsig manual, as I admitted to you yesterday I'd done for several evenings, it is very, very tedious. It is a guide that you refer to when you wish to know when you when something's gone wrong or that you want to do something. The Australian manual is actually taking an overview of how it works. So it's very much, it's the same manual. There is some difference. The PCU in Australia is larger. They have larger cars. The trucks are 6 PCUs rather than 2 or 3. So yes, there's differences, but the model runs the same.
Thank you. And just a final point, which I think may be a correction to a misstatement by Mr. Diamond in cross-examination, but can you clarify the lane arrangement at the foot of Lochie Bray with regard to which lanes turn which way, please?
Okay. Lochie Bray, if you go up the Bray about 150, 200 metres, is 1.5 lanes wide. If you move down from that, for the last 50, 80 metres, I think, it's 3 lanes wide. One lane, the left-hand lane, is for going up. The centre lane is for going straight ahead or turning right, and the left-hand lane is for turning left only. That does not appear to be how Mr. Diamond modelled it. That also will cause significant differences in queue lengths if that point had not been recognised.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Right. Mr. Finley, have you got any questions?
Yeah, can I just on that last point, if one goes to the transport assessment, you may not have it in front of you, but so
I shall accept what you're telling me, yes.
if you look in Appendix B under capacity analysis, you will see that it's modelled with the arrows on the road as you've indicated. So that maybe Mr. Diamond at the close of play yesterday wasn't as up to speed as he should have been, but if one looks at the transport assessment, it's modelled with the left-hand lane showing left-hand only and the right-hand lane showing ahead or right. And that so is the first drawing under Appendix B, showing base flow scenario 1, base flows plan, and it's the same in all the drawings in Appendix B.
Okay, I accept that. I am surprised that with his great familiarity with the junction that Mr. Diamond forgot that.
Then, just coming back, question of clarification, the Brinjad and Ganaki Community and Canoe Community Council group put in a response which had some photographs attached to it, which the council cross-examined Mr. Diamond in respect of. One of them has a date stamp, but the others don't. Were they on the same date?
To be quite honest, we don't know. I think that's the case. We don't know. Let me point out that the photographs that the Community Council have been using are many of them, in fact almost all of them, have not been taken by Community Council members. It's members of the public who have brought those photographs to us. Consequently, some of them we can't cite the dates and times.
Right, yeah. I'm just looking at, so just for your note, I think it's CD 415 is the consultation response from the Community Council. And it has 3 photographs, so just so that I'm aware, it could be the same day, but it may not be.
I agree.
I have to say, I thought about this myself, and I think from memory there's another representation from a member of the public
which came in at the application stage, which has the same photographs, and they were all dated on the same day. But I'll leave that for you to look at. But there was another representation, not from the Community Council, but from a member of the public, which had the date, and they're all on the 20th of February 2018.
I'm grateful for that, sir, and that's something we can check. If I think it's Mr. Rivet that produces the other photographs, so I'll ask
yes,
him
indeed.
about those. Just interested, you referred to the Ganaki development, and if we go to the transport assessment, which is one of your documents.
Okay.
I don't think they're numbered, but there are two versions. There are two parts of it. There's certainly electronically. There's the transport assessment and the appendices to it.
Mm-hmm.
If one, you may need a copy for you, or just check that what I'm putting to you is correct, whichever way. But I'm looking at the actual body of the TA at the moment. If one goes to paragraph 4.2, gives rather a different description of the development than the one you gave. It says the development will consist of affordable rented accommodation available to a wide range of people, small families and single people of all ages, including those who need some support to live in their own home.
Okay.
Slightly broader potential clientele than you suggested.
Yes, I read that, and I know that was what's written. Before this development was actually mooted, my community council met with the Ganaki Trust, and they gave me that description of what essentially they had in mind, the one I gave you. They put a broader description in the planning application, right? The reality, some of the houses are built, it is mainly old retired people who are in these houses. The houses are the type that people would downsize into.
Yes. I'm looking at, the reason I'm asking you about this is really to see how the council would have assessed this, and they would have assessed on what's in the transport assessment, one would imagine. And then in terms of car parking requirements on the next page, it was the proposed development was to provide at least one car parking space per dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then trip ratios are given, but I think you said that if one goes to the appendices, and I'm looking at figure E1, and again this may be just a note for the reporter to look at, in terms of the base traffic scenarios, and then comparing that to Appendix 12 corrected, sorry, APP 12 corrected. There are very similar base scenario figures that appear either in the 2018 PKC traffic survey data or the 2015 PKC Paramix model data for the, I think that's the AM peak. It's just your comment that they show something completely different.
No, I've never. I don't think. I think initially we were looking at. Let me start again. There have been a large number of models of the Bridge End Junction in recent years. There was a model run when the Ganaki Trust proposed the development. There was a model run by Mott MacDonald when the Murray Rowell development was first mooted. And there was a model run before that when some housing accommodation was proposed in Isla Road. So there were 4 models run. They actually gave, many of them used similar traffic loading, but they all, certainly some of them, gave very, very different levels of saturation. So I admit I'm confused. I haven't sat with the models in front of me. But I do recall that the models did tend to give different answers, and certainly one of them, and I thought it was the Garnicki model, suggested the saturation was very high. I also like to raise the point, you may say that indeed the traffic assessment for judgment by the council would have suggested a certain trip rate. We are not making, as a community council, the same judgment call as the local authority. That's not for us to do. We are trying our best to check that the local authority is doing their job properly. But we're taking an overview of these developments. We saw the Garnicki Trust development. We talked with the Garnicki Trust members, and we were persuaded that this was a development that would really free up accommodation through the town by persuading older people to downsize into smaller houses. And that seemed a very good thing to do. It was affordable housing, which again is very, very useful for the whole community. So we were doing much more than just looking at the traffic. We were taking an overview of what this proposal was.
Thank you. And the last question I want to ask you is this, and I think you made it clear yesterday, but whilst I wouldn't want to go toe-to-toe with you on jetty queuing, I don't think you have any particular transport expertise in terms of traffic experience. Is that correct?
The one advantage I have over everyone sitting at your table is I do drive through Bridgend every day of my life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ellis, I take you don't have any questions?
The issues I was going to ask you about have already arisen. I'm not asking any questions.
Okay. Right. Mr. Beattier, I don't expect you to have remembered my standard questions or that you necessarily have an answer, but I'll tell you what they were, and perhaps you can comment on your reaction to what the two experts have told me. So my first question was, in the general case, what issues would you observe at a junction that was at or over capacity? Any comments on the answers that were given?
Yes, I think what you do observe and what is actually fairly unique to the Bridgend junction is people breaking the law. People coming into the yellow box when there's no way out, people bypassing queues going down the wrong lane, and people actually going the wrong way down a one-way street. Mr. Diamond pointed out that he couldn't model that, and I quite accept he can't model that. He also pointed out their criminal acts, and I also accept that as well, but they're also a measure of frustration. And that is what is the main feature of that junction.
And my next one was, in the general case, do junctions suddenly fail, or is a sort of incremental build-up?
I think they do reach the stage where they actually just virtually fall apart, in my opinion. I have lived in Perth for 32 years. But spent 8 years away in Singapore. And when I came back, I was astounded at the gradual creep, which had grown to almost gridlock in Perth from when I had lived there in its much, much quieter days. So I am seeing very many junctions, and Bridgend, one of the key ones, that is frequently gridlocked, yes.
And what sort of, my next standard question was, what sort of daily or seasonal variations are normal and what are exceptional?
Seasonal, not a lot that I see. I think you do see a lower load somewhat when the school holidays are in place, so that does take some of the strain off the junction. I think you also see on wet days, naturally, there's more people using their cars. So the best day is a dry school holiday. The worst day is a wet school day. The frequency of queuing is actually most days. There are some days, strangely enough, that the junction is not gridlocked, but most days there is quite a gridlock at that junction.
Okay, I might come back to you on that. The next question I asked was whether there were any particular arms of the junction that were more important than others.
Well, the most important arm is the one you're sitting waiting on, I would say, always. I think for traffic moving through the city, it's very, very important that the A93 leg and the A85 leg is clear. The A85 leg goes back to another traffic light at the Queen's Bridge, and from there it's merely a mile and a bit to the M90. There have, although I've never ever known the M90 to be blocked because of the junctions in Perth, there have been occasions that I have seen the traffic within 300-400 metres of the M90 junction. So in my view, we're only a matter of months, or at worst years away, when, of course, notwithstanding the Cross-Tay Link Road, but we are close to blocking the M90 on key occasions because of the traffic situation in Perth.
And my next question was what the opinions of the experts were on the threshold of unacceptable impact on the junction, and there was a difference of opinion between Mr. Diamond and Mr. Deans. What would be your comments on that?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question you're asking. Can you?
What I asked them was, in their opinion, what is the threshold of unacceptable impact on the junction? And
okay,
yeah,
I think the threshold. These junctions, it's 275 metres, the width of the bridge, 210 metres to the A93-94 junction. Very, very frequently, the whole leg of the bridge and the whole leg of the A93-94 leg are full with no traffic moving. I believe you've reached a threshold when that happens, when the operation of the bridge end junction operates or to the detriment of the downstream junctions, then we have a problem. And sadly, that problem is almost daily.
and then I asked what number of dwellings at the site would cause an unacceptable traffic impact, and again there was a difference of opinion between Mr. Diamond and Mr. Deans. Any comments on that?
I personally believe the junction is fully saturated, and I do not believe that other accommodation can be built in the area until some significant mitigating steps are taken. So I would go at 0.
Finally, my standard question to the two experts was that could the Lochie Bray arm be unusually fragile, which is why sometimes it's reported to be working okay and sometimes not?
I think it is fragile, given that it deteriorates into about a lane and a half as you start moving up the hill. There are pavements on both sides of the junction, but the pavement on the left-hand side of the junction as you're walking down is very, very narrow. And anybody with a pushchair, a pram, even walking with a toddler, is obliged to step onto the road because the pavement is so narrow. When people with prams step onto the road, it blocks the junction. It could block it both ways if the vehicle is actually a bus or a truck coming uphill. So it is very fragile. The pedestrians are very, very exposed. The other pavement is actually quite acceptable, but it's very, very steep. We used to have a handrail all the way up because there's a lot of disabled elderly people live in care homes near there. But even that handrail is not continuous anymore. And in wintry weather, the pavement is very slippery. So it is quite dangerous.
Thank you. And finally, I asked Mr. Deans about the frequency of when queuing is as extensive as shown in the photograph studies before me, and he said often daily, at least weekly. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't agree. I think weekly is a gross underestimation. I would think most days would be a more exact answer from my experience.
So if I was to return to the junction during the school holidays, would I still see the level of queuing that was shown in the photographs, do you think?
You're less likely to, I would agree.
So it wouldn't be daily then, if it's during the school holidays?
Okay, I will accept that. The school holidays is a fairly small part of the year.
Thank you. Any questions in re-examination?
No, sir.
Right. It's just after 12:30. In terms of timing, would it be prudent to take our break now and then hear Mr. Rivett, or should we crack on in the hope that we can finish before lunchtime?
Yes, we'll carry on if you're happy with that.
You think we're likely to complete things before 1 o'clock?
So I don't think I have, at the moment, any questions for Mr. Rivett, or maybe one or two. So that may help in answering your question.
Okay, I'll take that. If you're confident we can, and I mean this in the nicest possible terms, dispose of a witness before lunchtime, then let us crack on.
Yes.
So we'll just take a few minutes for the witnesses to change over.
Thank you.
Start your evidence in chief for Mr. Rivett.
Mr. Rivett, can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Jack Rivett. I'm a past chairman of Bridgend Gannicky and Canoe Community Council. I am retired and I've lived in the area for 30 years. Previous in my working life, I was a telecommunication consultant.
Thank you. Now, there's much use made of Google Maps in your submissions, and perhaps for the help of others, Mr. Diamond, who has said he explicitly doesn't use Google Maps, perhaps there are some aspects of these that we'd all benefit from explaining. First of all, on pages 7 to 16 of your material, these show traffic maps which are designated as typical. Now, can you explain what Google means by typical as opposed to live maps?
Okay, I can give you Google's representation of how they calculate the data. Google Maps receive bits of data in real time from users. The data is matched with information from other users in the area. It's mixed with history data to provide real-time traffic updates. Google Maps is one of the most popular apps in the world and well over 1 billion users. Google collects its mapping data from a wide variety of sources, including road sensors, user contributions via MapMaker, and local transport departments, among several others. How does Google collect this information, which is accurate to the last minute on most occasions? Officially, Google says the traffic data comes from a variety of sources, including government departments of transportation and private data providers, among other sources. But there's more to it than just that. When it comes to traffic data and associated predictions, Google Map users and help it out without even knowing they are doing so. Ever notice that when you're using Google Maps navigation to reach your destination, it gives you alternative routes or informs you of some unexpected traffic? This is because the Google Maps app on an Android or an iOS constantly send back real-time traffic data to Google. The data received from any particular smartphone is that compared to data received from other smartphones in the same area, and the higher the number of Google Maps users in the area, the more accurate the travel prediction. The AA indicate that they use Google Maps for their traffic news and road watch services. Here is a relevant quote from the AA website, Roadwatch. Our maps are powered by Google to report wrong directions, add a missing place to the map, suggest map edits, flag map issues for removal, or given any other general map specification feedback. Please contact Google Map support. It's perhaps also worth noting that the web page concerning the accuracy of the Google Maps data has been on the web for over 2 years, giving plenty of time to challenge it, but there is no evidence of any challenge. Moreover, a Google executive is quoted on the web page, and she would undoubtedly have corrected any information that was false or wrongly attributed to her. Another source of traffic data are users of WAS, which Google acquired in 2013 for $1 billion. WAS users feed information like accidents and traffic jams on their routes into the app, which Google can use to make your navigation experience more accurate. Since launch, Google has collected enough data to be able to predict the kind of traffic users can expect on any road at any time of the day. For example, Google would know that traffic would be at peak in the morning and evening, but not on holidays. Using the historical data it has compiled over the years and data from mobile devices using the Google Maps app, the company is able to create models for traffic predictions for different periods. For example, the modelling techniques would be able to predict that certain roads would experience more traffic during rains than other times of the year. Google also takes traffic reports from transportation departments, road sensors and private data providers to keep information up to date. In cases where traffic is causing slowdowns on the map, on the road, but the route still remains the only way for the fastest way to be a user's destination, the Google Map sends alerts detailing the reasons behind the delay, as well as informing the user that this is still the fastest route that they can take.
Thank you. So, is it fair to say that the typical maps are not just simple averages, they're actually much more sophisticated evaluations of the traffic and congestion?
Our understanding of Google Maps is that, yes.
Thank you.
Whilst you're on that subject, just looking through the typical versions, and I can see the timing is set by the slider
Yes.
at the bottom.
Yes.
And I can see the various colours, and perhaps Mr. Finlay will ask you questions on that. If not, I will. But I noticed that some of the roads, like Lochie Bray on the Monday AM typical traffic situation, doesn't have any colour on it. Does that mean they haven't got any data for that kind of minor road, or does it mean that it's running clear?
No, they will have data for the minor road. I think what's probably happened with these maps is the fact that if you extend the map out, there's more information on each of the roads.
I'm looking at your slide.
Yes, I know.
I'm looking at your. You understand the point I'm making.
Yes.
I'm looking at your slide 7, and I see that Lochie Bray, for example, is shown as white.
That's correct. To get
So you're telling me I shouldn't draw any conclusions that means there's no congestion.
correct, sir.
Right.
The whole idea of using the typical maps was to show the extensions out to the 85 that my previous colleague was speaking about.
So on the other slides, which do show colours on Lochie Bray, that's because when you took the slide shots, you pulled them out.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, Mr.
Sure. So moving on, because there are 3 of your pages, 18, 19 and 20, which indicate traffic queuing lengths. So perhaps you could make a comment on those to help explain those, please.
Yes, again, we selected these dates. We deliberately chose Tuesday, the 7th of May, at 8:51 a.m. to show you that the queue from the junction of the A94 and A93 was stretched back for 2.25 kilometres. During that period of time, on Tuesday, the 7th of May, the Perth Bridge, which is the one that Lochie Bray goes on to, was scheduled to be closed. But it isn't scheduled to be closed until 9:15, so the traffic was still flowing freely over the bridge at that time. Well, freely is the wrong word. The traffic was still flowing over the bridge.
So just for clarification, the lengths indicated on those particular pages, the maps are from Google's own
From Google's own calculations, yes.
calculations. Thank you. Now, the inevitable question is what do the different colour codes on the maps indicate?
Okay.
The orange, the dark red and so on.
Our understanding of the colours is that green would be free-flowing, yellow would mean light traffic, light red would mean congestion starting to build up noticeably, and red would be heavy traffic, speeds have slowed down so you can expect delays, and dark red would mean bumper-to-bumper traffic nearly at a standstill.
And can we perhaps bear that out from our own experience of traffic queues and time it takes to get from one point to another?
Yes. Yes, we can. With the live traffic, you can see how busy the roads get. For example, on page 22, you can see that they're coming in from Barnhill, which is the A85 coming into Perth. There is a dense traffic coming in, virtually stopped up to the bridge. And if you go on further into the Perth Bridge, you'll see that there's heavy congestion at the traffic lights of Bridge End. So there would be queuing on that bridge at that time.
So how long then typically, from your experience, would it take, say, to get from that entrance on the A85 coming in from the East Dundee direction at the Barnhill toll into the centre?
12 to 15, 16 minutes, something like that, 17 minutes.
So that would represent essentially something like walking pace, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Some of the applications show traffic speeds associated with the colours. That red on WAS app indicates 5 kilometres per hour or less. The red would indicate something between 10 and 20 kilometres, and up until you get light red, yellow and green, where green would be free flowing, it would be no speed on the map.
Okay, thank you. useful information. Now, just to perhaps again provide some clarification, but possibly anticipate the question. The live Google Maps that are in your presentation, can you explain how those were selected over a range of different times and dates?
They were just to try and show, I don't want to use the word typical, but just use a standard day in the traffic in Perth. So that's why those were chosen at the peak times.
Okay, so that is perhaps indicative of the sort of conditions one would expect over different days, different times. But were there...
So Mr. Lowe, just jumped into my head. Can I just, in relation to the last point I made to you, Mr. River, I'm looking at slide 22.
Yes.
And I see the colours on all the main roads, which was the same as on the typical one. So this is Monday, the 8th of April,
yes,
at 6:06 p.m.
Yes.
In this particular slide, I can see that there is a dark red on Lochie Bray.
Yes.
It's free throwing on the other side. It then gets the light red further up Moore Hill. But for the other roads, there's no colours, and perhaps I misunderstood you, but when I asked this just now, you said you don't get colours until you enlarge out. So how can it show it on Lochie Bray but not on Bowerswell Road, for example?
If there was no traffic on Bowerswell Road, they wouldn't be getting any indications via GPS that there was traffic on it.
So that was my point about the typical ones, and what you said there was I shouldn't conclude that if it's a white road that there's no traffic on it, because if I had zoomed in, I would see the colours.
Only if there was traffic registered. I mean, it's like a map. It shows you the main roads are green and it's free flowing, but the side roads are white on Google Maps.
So the white would mean that
they'd be free flowing.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you. Just for, again, clarification on those, were there roadworks or significant events going on at the time that those snapshots were taken?
Any day that we knew there was roadworks or event on, we did not take Google Maps. So these are just normal working day.
Okay, thank you. We've had some comments on the photographic evidence, that's pages 33 to 38, and in fact some of that turned up in Perth and Kinross Council's evidence. So can you comment on these? We've learned that some of these are very much not necessarily Community Council produced evidence. These are submitted to the Community Council by members of the public trying to convince us there's an issue. So can you comment on those for us, please?
I can. All the photographs that were provided in this document, with the exception of page 38, were provided by members of the public, not by Community Council members. The pictures that were taken at Bridgend were taken by a photographer who had been down at the river trying to take pictures from birds and other things down by the river.
Okay, thank you. Again, a clarification of a point that was raised about the number of cars that can pass through the Lochie Bray junction going ahead on a cycle of lights. Can you give us an update on that?
user experience using the bridge is if the traffic lights go to green and the exit is clear, you will get approximately 4 or 5 at the most cars going through the junction.
So with a queue of, say, 18 to 20 cars,
You would probably require 4 cycles of the traffic lights to
4 or 5
get them
cycles.
through.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, we've talked a lot about exit lane blocking at peak times. Have you any comments and thoughts on that, please?
Well, all I can say to you is our community council has raised the issue about lane blocking on many occasions with Perth and Kinross Council and also the Police Scotland.
The latter being in connection with
Junction hogging and people going through
road
red.
traffic regulations
Yes.
being broken. Yes. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay. Thank you.
I have never reported an incident of someone driving down back line, but I have seen it.
Okay. Thank you. I've no more questions.
Okay, Mr. Finlay, any questions?
Yes, just in respect to the amount of cars that go through the traffic lights in a cycle, I have to say we disagree with the witness, but I don't think that's a matter that can be taken any further. You, no doubt, may be able to form a view on any visit to the junction. I understand the evidence given was that at most 5 cars could get through in terms of a cycle.
A cycle, yes.
Could I ask you to turn to your Google Map evidence? And I think the first slide, which shows Lochie Bray, is with any annotation, is slide 22. Now, did I understand from your last answer that any slide at that level of focus on the area, if there was a queue on Lochie Bray, it would show it?
Yes.
So,
That's my understanding of using Google Maps, yes.
so if we went back to slide 20, that's a similar level of focus on the junction. There's no queue on Lochie Bray then.
Slide 20, is that the last one of the queuing length of 866.27 metres?
Total distance 866.27 metres.
Yeah. The reason that you don't see any lines on Lochie Bray at that time was exactly what I explained to the recorder 2 or 3 minutes ago. If you're not zoomed in sufficiently to get the screenshot, it will not show a colour on the line.
So
Because it's not classed as a main road.
I understand that. I was just trying to contrast that with slide 22. So there's because slide 20 does seem to appear to have zoomed in to at least a certain extent
Yes.
on Bridgend.
Yes. Even on this slide, if you follow up to the bend in the road, which if you go straight on would take you to Gannicky Road, and you turn right, you go into Muirhall Road, even I was surprised to see a line of red on that road.
Yeah, okay, that's slide 22. But
Yes.
that, absolutely. Now, that, we don't know why that might be, because that's in the evening, and that's, as I understand it, Google Maps are so responsive, and one can test this oneself,
Yes.
but that could simply be a car stopping and holding the traffic up for 4 or 5 minutes,
Yeah.
or 1 or 2 minutes. Even.
What it's more likely to be is the fact that at 6:06 in the evening, the Gowrie Street, Dundee Road, on to the Isle of Skye Hotel, or the Perth Bridge, the Queen's Bridge, and then on to Dundee, is so congested, people cut up Manse Road goes through Kitcanoe, come down Muirhall Road and turn into Gannicky Road to divide the traffic.
So is that red line, can one tell from this figure which side of the road where that red line is? Is that red line showing traffic heading to the right of the slide, or is it showing traffic heading to the left of the slide?
On that particular slide, I would say I cannot tell, because if you look at the one at Bridge End, it's certainly on the left-hand side of the road, which would be
Yes.
the downward hill. But on that side, you cannot tell whether it's down or up.
Okay.
Just showing you that there's congestion on the road.
So slide 22 is the first of those. I think slide 24 also shows some queuing on well, let's go to slide 23.
Okay.
That's a similar focus on the junction and shows no queuing on Lochie Bray, which you would expect to see at that level of focus, surely.
That was at 11:06 in the morning.
Yeah.
By that time in the morning, the Lochie Bray would certainly not be queued.
No, but okay, I accept that. But the question I ask you is that just so that we can calibrate, that level of focus would have shown a queue if there was one there.
It would have shown a queue if it have shown some sort of activity, yes.
Then slide 24, we can see the length of the extent to which there's fast traffic or slow traffic at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And going down Lochie Bray on slide 24, it would appear to be not quite it would appear to be red rather than magenta, if I can.
It's not dark red, but it's not red. It's darker than red, but not dark red.
So it's but one can see how far up
Yes.
Lochie Bray that goes, and otherwise you're at fast traffic above
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Then slide 25, is that at a level of focus?
No,
See? No.
That's more concentrated to show the traffic over the bridge going to Athol Street.
Yeah. And I think the same would be true of slide 26
That's
and
correct,
slide
yes.
27. Slide 28 indeed shows
Yes.
some queuing. That's in the morning,
Yes.
and it shows, we can see the extent to which that goes up Lochie Bray in terms of it being fast-moving or slow-moving.
Yes.
And then slide 30, I think, has some, this is the evening, and one can differentiate on Muirhall Road which side.
Yes.
But this shows in terms of the junction, Bridge End Junction, for vehicles going down Lochie Bray into the junction, it's fast-moving.
That would be clear, yes.
Yeah.
I think the reason for that, in saying that, the red line is halfway up the hill, and that's because that's the narrowest point, and depending what type of vehicle was going up the hill, that would cause the vehicles at the top of the hill to stop until it could get down past the vehicle.
It seemed to me that that's orange rather than red, but I'm
Yeah, it's still traffic, but yes, it's not gridlocked.
There's nothing that shows on any of these Google Maps queuing back up to the junction of Muirhall Road and Gannicky Road, is there?
Okay. Do you want me to explain that?
No. Is there anything on these slides that shows queuing back from up to Muirhall and Gannicky Road?
Not at this time.
You? Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. River, again, I'm just going to run through my standard questions that I asked the two experts, and I'll be interested to know whether you've got any particular comments to make.
Okay.
So my first standard question was, in the general case, not relating to this particular proposal, but just in the general case, what issues would you observe at a junction that was at or near overcapacity, and you would have heard the two experts give their answers. Have you any comments to me you'd like to make?
I mean, certainly severe volume of traffic, potentially some sort of junction exit being blocked, and no way for the traffic to move forward.
And then I asked, in the general case, do junctions fail suddenly or incrementally?
A junction will not fail suddenly. It has to be a build-up of traffic that would cause the junction to fail. And I think it's evident from observation that the main arterial roads feeding the traffic lights at the bridge end side are extremely heavily congested. And this is why the Community Council are saying that Bridge End Junction should not be looked at on its own. It's only a junction. It needs to be taken into where the traffic is coming from.
And then I asked what sort of daily or seasonal variations are normal and what are exceptional.
Okay, certainly daily there is a lot of congestion in Bridge End. Typically in the morning and in the afternoon you will see queues of traffic from Bridge End traffic lights all the way back along Gowrie Street, Dundee, to the school, through the traffic lights out to Barnhill, as the Google Maps show. Not only that, at the traffic lights at the Queen's Bridge, there is a leg coming down from Glasgow Road at South Street by the time it gets down there. That's full. On the other bridge, Perth Bridge at the Bridge End Junction, traffic going into Athol Street is full because there's nowhere for the traffic to go. The sequence of the traffic lights, if I could explain to you. Yes? Okay. If someone's coming from Scone and they come down to the A93-A94 junction and go into the right-hand lane to go to the right to go over the bridge, they have got to wait until the traffic that's coming along from Gowrie Street and Dundee Road has been stopped before they can turn right. By the time the traffic who's on the inside lane coming from Gowrie Street turns right and goes onto the bridge, the traffic lights at the far end of the bridge is stopped. So therefore that traffic is feeding in there and backing up. So when the traffic lights change to the arrow to allow the traffic coming from Scone to go to the right, they don't have the full length of the bridge, and the full length of the bridge is 270 metres long, which the calculation is what, 45 vehicles? It's not 50 vehicles, so somewhere between 45 and 50 vehicles. So that bridge is already half full, but if not even more than that, before they go. And when the traffic lights stop, they're sitting in the yellow box as the photograph evidence stopped. And if you look at the timing of the photographic evidence, the light has changed to green for them coming down Lochie Bray, but they've nowhere to go. And that is a daily occurrence, and not at peak times all. It's during the day as well.
Okay, then...
You wanted seasonal.
I was merely your comments on the answers I got from the experts, because it was...
Well, I would give you my observation of seasonal traffic if you wish. During the summer months, Perth is one of these towns or cities as it is now in the country that attract a lot of visitors. And if you are on Lochie Bray or walking about down in Bridge End, the number of caravans and mobile homes during the summer period is greatly increased, as you would expect, because Perth is one of these routes that take them up to the north, and it's very, very full.
Okay. The next one is, are there any arms of the junction that are more important than others?
I believe that the answers have been given to that has been the fact that the Dundee Road has got to be given priority to clear to allow other traffic coming in, but also the traffic coming from Scone and the A93, Isle Road, has to be given the opportunity to get across the bridge into town. So those three links are equally important to try and keep Bridgend cross free.
And then I asked the two experts about their opinion of the threshold of unacceptability. And you heard Mr. Diamond and Mr. Deans had different answers on that. What would your comments on that be?
I would agree that the junction is saturated. It doesn't take much to cause queue and traffic backing up on all the arterial roads, not just Lochie Bray. I think one of the things, and I do whenever possible, try to use the bus coming down for Canoe, and I believe you did mention transport. There is only one bus an hour, comes from Canoe Hill. That bus, many times during the day, is running late because of the traffic. What happens to the bus as it goes into the town? It changes from the number 11, which runs up the hill, to become a number 3, which goes out to Scone, round Scone, and back into Bridgend, into the centre of town. It becomes a number 11 again. They've got to the stage now, Stagecoach, where they leave a spare bus at the bus station, and as the buses are tracked, if the buses are not going to be back in time, they send a spare bus round, because that is the only way of transport to Canoe Hill.
Okay, thank you. Then I asked the two experts what number of dwellings at the site would cause an unacceptable impact. And again, we got different answers from Mr. Diamond and Mr. Deans. Any comments on that?
People have been using the number of trips and things like that, which means nothing to a layman like myself. If people are going to work, they'll tend to leave in the morning and come back at night, which is probably less significant than people who are running in and out the town 2 or 3 times a day, which adds to it. So I would say any number of houses currently, with the state of the roads, would only add to the additional congestion at Bridgend.
And my final question was, could the Lochie Bray arm be considered unusually fragile, which is why sometimes it's reported to me that it works and other times that there are extensive queuing.
Okay, there was reference made to the Google Maps that we were using showing little traffic on the Lochie Bray. And the reason for that was at the time, Gannicky was closed, so no vehicles could come out of the Scone Road through Gannicky using it as a rat run down onto Lochie Bray. Now, there's many mornings that we go down to Gannicky Road and turn right and travel along there 40 or 50 yards, and the traffic are queuing to get down to Lochie Bray because the road is full. None of our maps have been able to capture that at that time because, I say, Gannicky was closed due to gasworks.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Any questions in re-examination, Mr. Fleming?
Yes, so one question, if I may, and then we can go for lunch, I would hope. Just picking up on the comment about Perth as a venue for tourism and special events and so on. It's a tough question, but have you any idea of what sort of frequency we could expect those?
Well, yesterday we heard
events?
Sorry. Yesterday we heard something being typical and atypical. How do you class an event? Is it a typical event or an atypical event? If any of the people in this room had been in Perth on Saturday, not only was there the racing on Saturday, and I don't know why Saturdays and Sundays have been discounted from the traffic assessment, because the road is as busy on a Saturday and a Sunday as any other day of the week. The races were on Saturday from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, with hospitality starting around about 12. The A93 was totally full. The road between the traffic lights at A93 and Bridge End was full. Dundee Road was full to the Queen's Bridge and all the way out towards the motorway. That has an impact on the arterial roads coming from the police station, which is on Dunkeld Road, down over the bridge, because all the traffic is backed up because Perth and Kinross Council give priority to the 85 and control the lights manually. And that does cause huge backups.
And
The other thing is as well, the number of racing days. There's 13 days a year when Perth has races, and they're not always a Saturday. They're on days during the week. They also have evening meetings. I think there's only 2 evening meetings, but they have 2 evening meetings. And over and above that, at the same venue, which is Scone Palace, where the race is, they have 39 scheduled events in 2019, some of which last for 3 days and cause extremely heavy traffic on these minor roads.
Done?
thank you, yes.
Okay. Right, we'll break then for lunch. We'll reconvene at 2:15, and we'll start off, and we'll have the, sorry, not start off, we will have the design hearing session. And normally for hearing sessions, I would bring the tables in a bit closer, just to save us having to move furniture. Are parties comfortable that we can do a hearing at this extended distance? I think we can improvise and get over this one together. Right, let's meet back at 2:15 then.